Yo, what is up, my friends? Welcome to another episode of Dostcast. मेरा नाम है विनम्र कसाना. If you are new to my YouTube channel, please subscribe because we release new episodes every Tuesday and Friday at 12 p.m. Indian time. और अगर आप ऑडियो प्लेटफॉर्म्स पे सुन रहे हो तो गिव अस अ 5-star rating because we're the best in भारत. आज के हमारे गेस्ट का नाम है राज कुंकुलियांकर and आदित्य कुलकर्णी. Together, they're the founder and co-founder of Stoa HQ, an online MBA platform. बट उसके बियॉन्ड अब क्योंकि दुनिया बदल गई है, देयर टेकिंग अ पिवट एंड गेटिंग इनटू समथिंग दैट इज़ वेरी कूल, जो हम लोग पॉडकास्ट पे रिवील करते हैं. उसके साथ द पर्टिकुलर थिंग आई वांट टू से अबाउट दिस एंटायर एपिसोड इज़ बड़ा रेयरली ऐसा होता है कि फाउंडर टाइप के लोग मजाकिया मिलते हैं, हु आर विलिंग टू टेक अ जोक, हु अंडरस्टैंड कि मीम्स या कल्चर में क्या चल रहा है, हु आर ऑल्सो more accessible, right? मतलब यहाँ पे हम लोग we even made fun of like a lot of Twitter threads and stuff, and they're both very competent. They are in a future-facing industry. मज़े आए. I had Raj on my previous podcast called the Vinamra Kasana Show, where we discussed, among all things, surprisingly, Kanye West. तो बहुत बढ़िया सीन था. This is particularly a helpful episode for those of you who are thinking यार future में jobs कहाँ से आएंगी? What is going to be the face of the job sector in India, और मेरे को अभी क्या skills use करने की ज़रूरत है, what skills do I need to learn now so that I was safeguard for the future. All those questions and a lot of bakchodi in this episode. The episode with the founder and co-founder of Stoa HQ begins in 3, 2, 1. Welcome to Faridabad, guys. Stoa HQ in the house, not on Zoom, in real life.
This is my first time in Faridabad.
Thank you.
Right, it's been interesting. Or coming from Goa, it's been an interesting, say, insight into.
Were you carrying the Goa with you?
Of course, that's. I carry the beach along with me wherever I go. तो चाहिए पड़ता है, especially here.
Yeah. यहाँ पे ऐसा क्यों? Like, are people are like just like आप गोवा से हो, आप पूरे दिन शर्ट और शॉर्ट्स पहनते हो, और they like a little, you know, pensive about it?
I think Delhi is definitely much more cooler. I remember getting kicked out of a few pubs in Bombay for wearing.
Bombay is the exact same thing.
For wearing slippers. I thought like थोड़ा uptight है.
This यहाँ पे भी हो सकता है, I guess, right? Like there must be places here.
They say club rules apply everywhere, and arms and ammunition is not allowed, which is like the starting of many comedians' careers. जो यही बात बोलते हैं ना, वो दिल्ली में तो arms and ammunition है. Anyway, you know, Aditya, I was reading your tweets and you said that there's something called Zoom dissonance, where you see a person and you realize कि ये तो बहुत छोटा है असली ज़िंदगी में या बड़ा है. Right? You guys have been basically building Stoa in the last 1.5 years in the pandemic on Zoom only. Sir, दुनिया खुल गई है. अब क्या plan है?
Yeah, I mean, temporarily, I'm pretty sure, like, you know, there is some revenge consumption and people are like stepping out.
Revenge consumption?
Yeah, I mean, you're locked down for like, you know, 2 years and...
Like all the Shenzhen visa slots I hear for the next few months.
They're all booked, yeah.
Are all booked, right? So that says a lot about दिमाग में क्या चल रहा है. Like markets have also crashed, so look, I think it's a weird time to be alive and have money and be someone who consumes, right? Who has that liberty. People are probably tripping in all sorts of ways and coping.
I think coping है ना, मतलब we survive. I'm sure everybody had, like, you know, they lost somebody. And फिर अभी खुल रहा है, like, you know, you personally feel like, you know,
conflicted,
having some fun, थोड़ा
अब तो खुल जाते हैं थोड़ा सा.
तो I think mentally everybody is like, you know, in some weird space कि and I think we see that at Stoa also, right? Like मतलब थोड़ा attendance वगैरह थोड़ा कम होता है, but I'm pretty sure people will come back.
छुट्टी पे गए हैं लोग.
But I think we've like responded with more offline events.
You're doing physical events now.
Yeah. I think that's where the vibe really shows up. Zoom पे गाना बजाना is one thing, but in doing it in real life is definitely different scene altogether, right?
And I think मतलब हम तो कर रहे हैं events, but what we also see is people hanging out, right? Like people have also made friends online over last 2 years because that was the only way you could really make new friends. तो वो सब भी दिखता है कि people are on their own.
I think people also have to just start redeveloping their social skills. जो Zoom की वजह से maybe they were like a bit rusty because there are no excuses to be indoors now. अब किस बात का cabin fever है? Yeah.
I think Zoom came as a savior for a lot of people, right? Like who were better off maintaining that distance, being interacting with people through a box, right? I think a lot of people felt comfortable without having to bring the whole self. Chaddi mein baith ke Zoom call kar lo, like. I think people enjoyed that, but there was again a certain class of people who find their energy in physical spaces, right? So wo renegotiation chal raha hai. But one thing that's not changing is like our heights, right? Like that's definitely not changing. And in that, what the funny bit, is when I think people meet, at least me, and I'm sure with you as well, people like, oh, I didn't think you'd be this short, right? Of course, but to say, oh, I didn't think you'd be this tall, it's like a cool statement to make, right? You feel good, but then someone's like, I didn't think you'd be this short. That's like,
but yesterday somebody basically said, hey, like when we told them like we are not 25, like
yeah, you guys look very young.
Matlab, thank you. But when I told this person that I actually have a kid, and I think uska thoda mental model trip ho gaya ki
ye to buddha hai, boomer hai, like.
So like entrepreneurs in their 40s here really look like they're in their 50s, like just about to die basically. So us sense mein I think there's less stress in the southern parts of India. वहाँ पे अच्छा weather भी होता है. यहाँ पे you've got pollution, किच फिर status signaling भी तो करनी है because you're a North Indian entrepreneur, तो उसके बिना तो कैसे ही चलेगा, like it's just like you can't live like a non-monk like lifestyle, you have to show off. So उस stress वगैरह से यहाँ के entrepreneur बुरे लगते हैं, but that's not the same problem down there.
In fact, like this was an observation when we landed the other day, and I was just observing people's shoes, right? Because apparently that's what you're supposed to be doing. ऐसे सुना है, like people observe your shoes, तो हम भी करते हैं shoes observe. Even the cab drivers, folks, like spick and span, like they have it, like they focus है, attention to detail, as they say, right? Fashion sense है,
right?
Which I think when you move down south, it's a little.
Or more, maybe it is dal, मतलब वो घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर. No, I mean, we are so used to, like, for example in Bangalore, but when you come to Delhi, there is some, mental shocker, right? Like the world works slightly differently here.
Yeah. ये तो है, यहाँ पे people like to dress up a lot. They really like to dress up and go out. And in fact, जैसे मैं टी-शर्ट और शॉर्ट्स में, it's only because it's standard uniform for most younger men कि मतलब क्या ही कर रहे हो. But जैसे चप्पल पहन लेते हो ना, like even you stop taking yourself seriously here. Like it's a psychological thing. You're like, अरे मैं चप्पलों में आ गया इतना बड़ा काम करने के लिए. Like I remember मैं किसी की हाउसिंग सोसाइटी में गया था, मेरे को गार्ड कह रहा है आप निक्कर में आ गए यहाँ पे, मेरी लड़ाई हो गई. मैं कहा तू कौन है मेरे को बोलने वाला, निक्कर में आ गया, मैं हाँ आ गया. So there's all this weird gatekeeping that happens here that I don't think happens down south, like where like you can wear whatever you want. But I'm sure like you won't go to someone's wedding wearing like t-shirt or Bermuda, hanji, bada acha laga. So but people I
actually did that for one of my
God,
this was like some Jai Mahal palace and in Bangalore, and time I was like this some activist social rebel type, so kind of तो मैं वहाँ पे sleeper में चला गया. तो उसने जैसे ही देखा बोले कि यार कुल्लू मुझे पता था तू कुछ तो, but yeah, I regret that now. But yeah,
I think so. For example, like someone saw a photo of me yesterday on Instagram. One of the WhatsApp groups with me with proper like my feet covered.
Right.
Okay, and they're like, this is fake. ये नहीं हो सकता है Raj. Like what is going on here?
Yeah.
So that's I think the mental shift in our head also कि Delhi जा रहे हो like तो कुछ सब पहन के जाना है, right? You want to not stick out.
Yeah, I don't know. Like it's also because I think Delhi is closer to the capital. Like I don't know what it is. कि ऐसा क्या है? Like why do people like just give less fucks about wearing whatever they want, right? Like you've got people like Viral Bhayani who are like कि अभी मलाइका जी जिम से निकली हैं, ठीक है. Some hilarious shit that I read is like, oh, Kareena Kapoor spotted outside her own father's house. Great, of course that's gonna happen. But it's chill. Like they're wearing whatever they want. यहाँ पे मतलब if you're seen in public, like ऐसे आप निक्कर वगैरह में, it's just I don't know. It's I think people like to look a certain way because यहाँ पे maybe it's just like a non-coastal thing where people are like competing for the same things. On coast you're more tall. I don't know. Fuck that. Let's talk about startups. ये क्या बातें कर रहे हो? So like we were discussing कि एक तो Y Combinator जो स्टार्टअप्स के बहुत बड़े गुरु महापुरुष कंपनी है जो चलाते हैं कई स्टार्टअप्स को, उन्होंने एक संदेश जारी करा है कि भाई साहब रिसेशन आने वाला है 2 साल में, बहुत बुरा होने वाला है, जस्ट सर्वाइव। तो कई मेरे फाउंडर दोस्त दुख बना रहे थे उस बात का कि यार हम पता नहीं कैसे करेंगे, हम तो फ्रॉड है अंदर से एक्चुअली, अब सबको बट लाइक डज दैट रेज एनी कंसर्न्स एट ऑल लाइक फॉर यू गाइज, और लाइक इन जनरल कोई टिप्पणी इस पूरे रिसेशन पे जो आ रहा है?
आई थिंक for the past 2 years we've been like, majority of the time we've been looking at each other and wondering like, hey, are we like idiots around here, and when people raise funding, which you read on paper 50 million, 100 million, 10, 20, whatever, you're like, I wish this was us. Me, pinch feel to hota hi hai, but when you now read the whole layoff wala like news whatnot, previously I think a year ago there were lists of startups that have raised like most amount of funding, up to wahi list startups that have fired most number of people, right? And like the same time you're like, jitna dukh hota tha utna ab like you're like, thank goodness I am not on
I think
this
the
list.
Sort of serious answer to that, and this comes from I think one tweet, Ankur, who is an investor in Stoa, Ankur Nagpal.
Okay.
उसने बोला था कि यार जिन्होंने 2021 में फंड रेज नहीं किया ना, उनका सही चल रहा है, बिकॉज उनको किसी ने भाव नहीं दिया, so you are not on some like steroids growing or trying to hire.
Also, it's a very weird moment in time, right? That whole being locked inside your home in COVID, वो वाली चीज़ gives rise to certain new behaviors, so I don't think अब इस खुली हुई दुनिया में दोबारा से possible है.
हाँ, मतलब जैसे इंजीनियर्स थे 2021 में, like there were so many stories on Twitter, they working 3 jobs, right? Because and every company was paying them crazy money. Like I tweeted about it. I saw Excel sheet of people who got laid off and the salaries they were on, and clearly they were मतलब वो बैठता नहीं है, मतलब given their experience, what they had achieved previously. So वो है कि 2021 में हमको किसी ने पैसा ही नहीं दिया, and everybody like
But did you raise in November or December 2021?
Like announced.
Yeah, we announced it late.
Okay.
And it was still a small round, right? Like the good thing is थोड़ा वो मराठी मानुस वाला भी चीज़ है ना, तो I'm not sure if you know about this reputation, but Marathi
I know the word Marathi Manus. I know that it means pride for being Marathi.
So the tradition in Maharashtra has been कि भाई पुणे जाना है, नौकरी करना है, right? So it is very conservative and kind of way in which you grow up and how you go about living your life.
Not at all aggressive. You're pretty much like playing on the back foot all the time, always like paranoid, looking out.
जल बोर्ड में नौकरी लग जाए, like that.
हाँ, तो you're playing it safe, and I think that's how we went through the year with a lot of cynicism as such कि this doesn't like कुछ तो like you have 2 options, right? Like you either play the game because you are like सब खेल रहे हैं, like हम भी खेल लेते हैं, क्या है. In that moment that feels like the right thing to do because benefits, बैंक में पैसा आ जाएगा, right? It's pretty tangible in that sense. Mania चल रहा है. The other choice is like you pretty much sit it out because
I mean, it was not by choice, right? Like we did try, but nobody gave us money.
It was a half-hearted attempt. It was like almost FOMO'd into like, ठीक है बात कर लेते हैं, लोग भी बोल रहे हैं बात कर लो, कर लेते हैं, but heart wasn't into it because it was not like we were reliant on that also. A lot of people, once you're on that, I think, track, कि raise करना है, you want that hit coming in periodically to survive and sustain and like grow.
हमारा I mean he's a very good friend and an investor in Stoa, but वो एक दिन हमको Zoom call पे बोला कि यार ये राज लग रहा है कि वो गोवा में बैठ के फैनी पी रहा है, तुम नासिक में बैठ के वाइन पी रहे हो, तुम ऐसा बोल ही नहीं रहे हो यार, दुनिया चेंज कैसे करोगे, like why should people give you money, right? Like
but it's refreshing for someone who follows his Twitter, like I recently came onto your Twitter. It's very refreshing because I'm an entrepreneur, but like I'm not a founder. So इस पूरी दुनिया के अंदर जो associated words और terms होते हैं ना, I feel like as a regular consumer of Twitter पे founder tweets, I'm being talked at. ठीक है, तो मतलब instruction मिल रहे हैं या खामा-खा का ज्ञान मिल रहा है, which is fine if you are trying to aspire to that. But then what happens is, sometimes founders aren't very accessible to the rest of the public, right? Which I find that is not the case with what you guys do. Absolutely accessible to the point of even making fun of yourselves or memes वगैरह डालना. Like when we first talked in the lockdown, it was pretty unprecedented for a founder to say कि bro, like मतलब memes वाला scene है, vibes create कर रहे हैं. Because I'm assuming it's a reputational risk, right? कि you're just playing it casual, like at the expense of people not taking you seriously.
Yeah, it's a like thin line to walk, right? One side you want to get serious, you want to be taken seriously enough to be considered ki ye log, these people can take care of my career. That's that on one end. On the other end, you don't want to go so YOLO with your like dankest opinions that you get cancelled, right? So it's a very, and you want to be yourself while at it. You don't want to be like a robotic, like in college वाले intern को बिठा लिया, चलो Wikipedia पढ़ो, thread लिखो, thought leadership करेंगे, right? Right? So
thought leadership करेंगे.
You have to balance it all, sort of.
अच्छा लोग ऐसे ही करते हैं क्या thought leadership?
सुना है like लोग आते हैं कि मैं भी कर लूँगा आपके लिए, like thread लिखूँगा, this that, but वो
the other thing is, see, this approachable kind of thing, no? And I teach, like, in some of my sessions, I say this about this whole business founder language, GTM, PMF वगैरह ना, ये थोड़ा मुझे एकदम संस्कृत की तरह लगता है, पता है, right? Like if you think in olden times, like very few people had access to that language. Yeah. This whole startup language, like, you need to know how to speak it. Or personally, I have struggled with it for 6 years, right? Like my पहले जो business दो थे, they did fairly okay, not well.
And this guy has an IM, like MBA, just FYI, right? Like I'm Bangalore.
So I could not speak that language, right? And I think even at Stoa, we are still trying to figure ourselves how to speak that language well. But अभी थोड़ा बहुत proficiency आ गया है. And but once you get a hang of that language, then a lot of doors unlock.
क्या आपने कभी सोचा है कि यार मैं अपनी खुद की कंपनी बनाऊं, मेरा भी कोई को-फाउंडर हो, मैं भी स्टार्टअप अपना चला पाऊं? अगर आपके मन में हल्की सी भी मनोकामना आती है तो कुकू एफएम के ऊपर एक बुक समरी है जिसका नाम है लेट्स बिल्ड अ कंपनी. ये 2 IIT के छात्र हैं जिन्होंने अपना सक्सेसफुल स्टार्टअप चलाया. तो ये बैक एंड जर्नी बताते हैं हिंदी में, उनकी क्या स्ट्रगल्स रहे, पैसे रेज करने में क्या दिक्कत आती है, वो सब चीज़ें जो हम बाहर के फैंसी और स्टार्टअप में देख लेते हैं लेकिन वैसे मिस कर देते हैं. द इनर वर्किंग्स ऑफ हाउ यू इवन लाइक स्टार्टअप, वो है कुकू एफएम पे. ऐसी बहुत सारी और ऑडियो बुक्स और समरीज हैं जिसको देश भर के लोग अपनी अपनी रीजनल लैंग्वेज में सुन पाते हैं. तो आप भी ये मजा ले सकते हैं. लिंक इन डिस्क्रिप्शन है, वहां जाके कुकू एफएम डाउनलोड करें. और मेरे खास, मेरे प्रिय, मेरे अजीज दोस्तकास्ट के लिसनर्स और वॉचर्स के लिए एक स्पेशल कोड है DTC50. अगर आप DTC50 यूज करोगे तो कुकू एफएम प्रीमियम पे आपको 50% डिस्काउंट मिलेगा. पहले 250 लोगों के लिए है. दैट इज ऑल. डाउनलोड कर लेना. एंड नाउ बैक टू द एपिसोड. 100%. I can just go in a room and say, bro, time क्या है, LCV क्या है, like I just own the room and I had to learn them the hard way. और मैं तो मतलब ये काम भी नहीं करता हूँ. तो but at the same time, it's also jargon, right? For a lot of people, it just feels like, oh, इस group में आने के लिए I have to kind of like know what is happening. Yeah.
It's the fluency, right? Like I think this was a concept.
Sajid ने लिखा था.
Like who's
Sajid?
He's a VC. वो अच्छा लिखता है, right? And he was chatting to us about this concept called fluency. And I think we read this from Austin Allred also, so founder of Bloom Tech, formerly known as Lambda School. उसने तो
Lambda
हाँ आग लगाई थी Twitter पे.
Lambda was one of the first ads that I watched entirely. The one with the Asian American woman speaking. Have you guys seen that ad? जहाँ पे वो बोल रही होती है कि do you want to be a hacker or a computer programmer? I forget what it was. But one, she looks very nice and then she says the entire thing and then at the end she's like, after 18 months तुम्हारी job लग गई and now you pay. That was the first time that the pay after you get a job model really came into being. I mean, I watched that ad a bunch of times and it was a hyper-targeted ad on YouTube.
So Raj in his previous avatar was like Garibon ka Austin Allred, right? Because he used to run Noah Semita, which was a ISA based, like income share agreement based model. But yeah, Austin talks about this thing, right? Like, and in fact, we have a common investor in Lambda and he told us something very interesting, that if you just keep messaging people on LinkedIn, like if you send 10 messages regularly every single day, there is no way you will not get a job in 3-4 months, which is high paying. So there are a lot of these.
US logo ke liye advice hai. I think Indians will probably try sending 1,000 messages in one day. Same to like one big paragraph and get nothing out of it, right?
Yeah, I also think the LinkedIn profile picture with the open to work is hideous. It does not, मतलब मेरे बिल्कुल लिखा होता है ना open to work. I just want to close it. Like I'd much rather have someone send me कि मैंने एक काम करा है, मैं proof of work as opposed to that horrible green hashtag के साथ open to work. It just, I don't know. There's a lot of things wrong with that, you know. Like, and हम naturally hiring की बात कर ही रहे थे. My own struggles, as for the lack of a better word, मैं दुनिया के लिए content creator बोलूँगा, वैसे मैं entrepreneur समझता हूँ अपने आप को. When I started hiring for the first time, it was something as simple as going to my Instagram story and saying, hey guys, मुझे एक कॉम्पिटेंट वीडियो एडिटर की ज़रूरत है, अपने 3 प्रूफ सैम्पल भेजो मेरे को, बिकॉज आई ऑल्सो लाइक सीन सम लिंक्डइन, सम ट्विटर स्टफ, एंड आई वर्कड एट जॉब्स माई सेल्फ. बट देन द सॉर्ट ऑफ रिस्पॉन्सेज आई गॉट वेरीड एनीवेयर फ्रॉम सर प्लीज़ फाइंड माई वर्क, और कुछ नहीं था उसके अंदर, राइट. ठीक है, टू समथिंग एज सिंपल एज मैंने ये 6 बड़े लोगों के लिए काम करा, आपके लिए भी मैं काम कर सकता हूँ पर वीडियो का, ये वाला पैकेज है. एंड दैट स्पेक्ट्रम, सो यू एज एन एम्प्लॉयर you're sitting there, you're like, I have to now filter through this, and then I have to do interviews, and then also, I mean, I was younger, it's like, it also shows your own incompetence. You have to fake pretend that you know what you're doing. So, bro, basically working hours ये होंगे, हमें ये करना है, as if you know the entire thing, right? But this whole process is so weird. And you can only extrapolate wisdom from your friends जिनको जानते हो कि आप कैसे करते हो, आप कैसे करते हो. जी मैं इंटर्नशाला पे करता हूँ, मैंने अपने मामा का बेटा लगा रखा है, ये कहीं और ट्विटर से आया था, you know, there is no real set thing.
हाँ, actually Stoa में in the initial days, right, like we used to be happy that someone even wants to work for us. So we made a lot of hiring decisions. भाई ये अपने लिए काम करना चाहते हैं तो ले लेते हैं. Right, like so that hiring thing is a bit tricky. You only learn through mistakes, right? Like or you learn from others' mistakes rather.
I mean, while we were on our way here, hiring is what we were like basically like
discussing
or rather there was a charged discussion about like इतना देना पड़ता है इस लोगों के लिए, that sort of a, you know, like.
Who do you think is the most overpaid in India? किस type की industry है?
Web3.
Web3?
I mean, yeah. See, it's a new thing, right? Like, and of course, it's financial engineering on steroids at this moment. So, वो टोकन वोकन मिल रहे हैं लोगों को, वो टोकन का वैल्यू कुछ $, whatever, right? Like it is denominated in some foreign currency. So, but
the dust hasn't settled.
Yeah.
On the market, it's still like mania. It's been mania for a while. Up to thoda, whatever. It's figuring itself out. But dust is yet to settle, and I think the arbitrage is still there, right? Like some people know about Web3, most people don't, and most people probably will consider it too risky even. So
now that the companies are forced because of this funding winter or whatever to focus on revenue, my sense is वो lagging dust settling kind of will happen, right? Because you can only pay people so much.
So sorry, मतलब I know कि lagging indicator क्या होता है, लेकिन lagging dust क्या हुई, मतलब
नहीं lagging indicator ही है, but what I'm saying is the dust will only settle maybe 12 months from now, where जैसे capital flow कम हुआ या थोड़ा, then people will only rationalize their spends, how much they pay people for what roles 12 months out here, right? Like immediately adjust नहीं होगा वो. The other thing is lifestyle inflation हो जाता है ना. If let's say I was making 18 lakhs and suddenly I'm making 30 lakhs, मेरा lifestyle पूरा change हो जाता है. तो for a lot of people to mentally get comfortable कि भाई मतलब मेरा वैसे तो औकात 18 लाख या 24 लाख का ही है, it takes a while for people to also understand that.
Like people would rather prefer, I think, being unemployed
than taking a pay cut,
right? Because see, the other thing that I've realized recently while talking to people on being overpaid and whatnot is that people tend to think that the compensation I get is a reflection of their worth, self-worth. I'm not talking from a point of anti-capitalist Instagram pages which try to convince you that You know, like
your followers are not your self-worth, or you go queen, you go king, वाली type की जो बात है.
Like Antiwork, r/Antiwork. I'm not
Antiwork. There's an Antiwork culture.
There is a Reddit, very popular Reddit, Antiwork, where people come and.
So what do they do instead?
So that is
sun their balls.
Cribbing, right? That's proper cribbing about like. I don't want to work, right? Like I wish I could live a life and I don't want to work. Of course, that's what all of us wish, right?
Lifestyle design karo, Tim Ferriss photo. What's this BS? I don't want to work.
But keeping that aside, what I mean is people cannot look at the macro picture. कि भाई economy गिर रही है इसलिए तेरी salary like गिर रही है. It's not like कि you have suddenly grown dumber in time.
But there's also truth to that as well, right? वो भी तो लोग कहते होंगे like maybe you just didn't upskill in the pandemic. Maybe you were just like a fool. You know?
No, the other thing is I think at certain point, people start realizing कि what they're getting paid is not what they deserve, right? Like and वो I think वो 25-30 लाख के बाद ना बहुत लोगों को वो आ जाता है कि यार अभी तो
कौन सी टेरिटरी में पहुंच गया, right? It's very difficult to figure out कि ये क्या है. Like middle class Indian थे 10 साल पहले,
अब नहीं है.
Like is this real? Like what's going on? Like am I supposed to be living this life? Is it illegal? Like what's going on?
It's like मैं अपने आप को चूटी मार लेता हूँ. It's like that. Yeah. So what happens then? Like people usually like either to take a complete leap or they do something like an MBA. You know, मुझे ऐसे लगता है कि people can't figure out what they want. They just go to a degree. Maybe this will help me find some answers, right?
Yeah. So see, I mean, there are certain legit ways that society accepts where you can take a break. So a lot of this higher education is like
paternity leaves.
Yeah. मतलब अगर तुम ऐसे बोलोगे मैं कुछ नहीं करूँगा 3 महीने बैठूंगा तो घर वाले बोलेंगे अबे ये सटी आ गया. But if you say suddenly no I am now going to go and take another degree, right? Like that is justified, right? Like it's a nice grift. कि हाँ एक साल.
We don't allow for leisure in this country at all. We don't like allow for family mandated leisure, society mandated leisure. ढूंढ के छीन के एक दिन का leisure बना लो by saying no's. Like you're lucky.
Yeah.
I think it's like privacy. I think is a very recent concept in the first place in the Indian like whatever society, right? Like I don't think if you lock your room, like
parents are going to be
like bro, like what's cooking, right? Like क्या चल क्या रहा है? If you lock your room, like they own the house, they're like we want to access to the room. एक चाबी हमारे पास रहेगी. I don't give a shit about you, right? तो वो a lot of these, like for example, I think slight detour, but into this Western culture that's seeping into India much faster than we can even like fathom what it is doing to us.
Right.
I think the peak of this is the Western style commode. Right, like
it's a Manik Mana stand-up comedy special. Have you watched it?
I have, but like I have personal thoughts regarding
Please
it. Right? Like I think the adoption, right? Like it's very rare to find beat a public space, hotel, ho any home also. Fancy building, whatever. You go to a builder. I think it evolved from like zameen mein gadda to to like it used to be attached to the ground.
Right.
Ab to
it's just on the wall.
Right? And
do you ever fear if you just jump on it, the seat will come down?
I mean, I'm not heavy enough to probably like have to really bother about it, but that's there in apne office maybe, like where we currently work out of Bangalore. Like you look at you go in, you sit, you close the door.
There are instructions written, right? Like because a lot of people are not used to.
Don't squat on this pot, right? Like there are legit. हमने नहीं डाला है, but like it exists.
I legit squat on the pot all the time.
Nice.
That's my point, right? Like you're meant to squat, but like whatever we've culturally accepted.
I think our food actually is more suited towards like Indian
squatting.
Squatting.
Unclog करने के लिए arteries. That's the only way to go.
I remember in 2012 I was doing my internship here, and I was staying at guest room in one of the MP's bungalow, and his constituents would continuously visit, right? Like मैं तो वहाँ पे 1 महीना था, and
they were all using the bathroom,
and it was Western commode, right? Like and so वो हर दिन it was a struggle to tell them कि भाई clean कर लो यार, because I mean, I understand, right? Like they don't know, but I think just the way we are adapting some of these things, right? Like, where did we start actually?
I legit get the Swachh Bharat Abhiyan. Yeah. But in my life, I think in Goa, right, I've gone from like pick toilets, which is like houses wherein you go to the toilet, there's a poop hole which takes the poop from your house to like an area outside your house when pigs would come in, eat your poop, right? Like a proper...
Yeah, actually legit, pigs like eating poop?
Yes, pigs like eating poop. Or Wikipedia page bhi hai, pig toilet, like check it out. Like, but we've gone from that to like walls, toilets plugged into the wall in under a decade. And that's what I'm talking about. Like that's...
Yeah. I was just searching for a place in Bangalore, right? And I think...
Indians have come out dhoond rahe the.
Matlab, your perception of how much rent should I pay is like, it is directly proportional to how you perceive the bathroom or like restroom in that house, right? Like the quality of living is like really like, you now see at least in these big cities, like kaisa hai toilet, kaisa hai ghar mein, and then you decide ki yaar iske liye 50,000.
100%. Like even at restaurants, no, like the reason McDonald's works so well is they make sure ki unke bathroom to saaf hi rahe, because it's one of the cheapest fast food chains still available. इससे एक parallel लेते हैं. Now I forget, like did you tweet it or did he? Because I was reading your Twitter pages in parallel, right? It was something along the lines of हम लोगों ने American dream तो बहुत देख लिया. You know, what is the Indian dream? And I think we haven't articulated that since our first like patriotic songs जब हम बोलते थे इंसाफ की डगर पे बच्चों दिखाओ चल के. That dream has sort of faded away in the last few years. But technology and like just the politics have changed. So it's a little unclear. I mean, like, tech has one angle. There's a Kapil Sharma-esque angle that you can be an entertainer. There's like, you can be a startup founder. Teesra hai, like, for a lot of people, it's like you can have a government job and a stable life, but we're not sure. Like as Indians, we aren't like sitting around and saying, ab hame kahan jana hai. Other people talk about it, about us as a country. Yaar, India bada acha kar raha hai, China bada acha kar raha hai.
I think India has what regions to hai, uske under, socio-economic strata hai. For example, like people who we probably went to college with, they were pretty convinced. Desh ke bahar jana hai, right? Like, so I think every strata has their own like social mobility ka, charter planned out. But I think as a collective, we probably don't have a cohesive goal to...
I think it is fractalized in many ways, right? Like I'm pretty sure for a lot of tier 2, tier 3 janta at this point, it's like Instagram reel pe, like, people should like, comment, and I think kiska report tha, maybe Samdish did this report on the unemployment in UP. So I think for Indian youth as a whole, like there is no way, there is no unified Indian dream, and maybe articulate bhi kisi ne nahi kiya hai. For example, what does hard work mean and what does it lead to? Yeah. Like UPSC ke liye 4 saal de rahe ho and then it doesn't result in anything. I'm pretty sure it is very devastating. And I think the incentives are sort of trippy here, right? Like people take break for preparing for IIT, people take break for preparing for UPSC, but कोई उसके लिए break नहीं, हाँ यहाँ पे हमने चालू किया था. But nobody is taking a break to really figure out कि भाई मुझे करना क्या है and how am I going to play this game, right? Like if you imagine...
gap years are condemned here. Like if you take a gap year, right, it's like, oh, you have to say I'm figuring it out, and you have to sort of, like I've faced it myself, you have to posture कि on the side मैं कुछ कर रहा हूँ, that is tangible, like an internship, to show that you're not wasting your time.
Front होना चाहिए कुछ. Like without a front you can't, like that I'm trying.
Gap year equal to money laundering and like front equal to like laundry business, so that it looks legit.
I mean you need to keep up that facade कि भाई हाँ मैं चल रहा है, life चल रहा है, ऐसा नहीं है कि मैं बहुत ही...
If you don't do it, for friends and family who want to look great in others' eyes, do it for you. Like they'll exaggerate and like, haan.
So my mother was telling me the other day, which of course they didn't tell this to me all along when kuch jam nahi raha tha, right? Like in the last few years, कि sometimes when they were confused, relatives would probably tell them, don't worry, he'll figure it out. When relatives were confused, they would tell relatives, ki, don't worry, we think he'll figure it out, right? So I think for every one individual who's taking a break, there are some 10, 20 like trying to actively stage some intervention. कि कुछ तो करवा लेना है, government job लगा देंगे, हम लगा देंगे, you know, we will figure it out for them.
We have a strong intervention culture, you know, in almost everything. शादी कराने में, alcoholism से बचाने के लिए, job लगवाने के लिए, it's like I am gonna take care of you. And this is my life now. You just sit. मैं driver seat के अंदर हूँ. Most people who've got nothing going on for them, they're like, ठीक है आप कर दो. And yeah, it's also because our ideas of what prestige is changing, right? Like the fact that you went to an IIM and stuff, and no offense, पहले बहुत बड़ी बात होती थी, but now that's slowly shifting.
So the signals have shifted, right? Like so, and it is also about what is prestigious, right? Like पहले. For example, today even at hiring, when we look at like if somebody has worked at Freshworks, that's a much bigger signal than somebody being from IIM.
Yeah.
Right. So hiring maybe signals change हो रहे हैं, and but yeah, I mean this just stopping people from failing, right? Like that's failure होना ही नहीं चाहिए. That is the way we treat our kids.
Yeah, I think in general protectionism. बहुत ज़्यादा we probably like there's too much of a safety net in a lot of places, right?
Yeah.
And I keep on saying this कि we buffer people from reality. I have been buffered from reality. There's been this whole bubble wrap basically around me while growing up, which has prevented me from seeing the world. It's like हमने मेहनत की है so that you can have a good life. Why the fuck do you want to,
why are you
struggle?
Yeah, you know what's funny is that this is a narrative all across the country. It's same. It sounds the same. I've been told it. A lot of my friends have been told it, and a few of us wake up and realize we have to manufacture our own adversity. We have to sort of open our own eyes. You know, like forcefully, like before time is like this because no one else is going to do it. What India does very well is no matter, I mean, unless like you don't have a family or an orphan, but like it provides you a blanket of community. और वो blanket तो हमेशा आपके पास रहता ही रहता है. And you can live your life in that blanket unbeknownst to troubles. Max ये होगा यार. Like I see a lot of people who don't do anything, then they end up being the fix-it-all guy. Nothing against fix-it-all guys कि electricity लगवा देता हूँ तुम्हारी वो दिक्कत हो गई है या फिर वो fridge साफ करवा देता हूँ. Like they just get involved in errand work. Only because they're like नहीं हमें जाना था शहर से बाहर किसी ने जाने नहीं दिया. But there's also that one part where you're like you didn't try as well. There's that as well. But that I feel like that is changing now with like for me to get an internship when I was in school, which is around like 2013, right? I would have to go online and say internships for school students. Find the first 3 websites, Internshala, ek do aur thi, and then try to see if my skills match that. Otherwise fake resume my way to glory, if that works at all, right? अब मेरे को ऐसा लग रहा है even fake resumes people are chomping down on. What has been your experience in that?
I think now you can spot, right? Like कि YouTube पे एक वीडियो है briefcase method करके, right? And जब हमने शुरू में hire करना चालू किया था, we were very impressed that somebody would come to an interview saying देखो Stoa के बारे में मैंने ये पढ़ा है, ये आपको ये करना चाहिए, this is how you need to change. ये we were like, man, this person is smart. We would hire them and then they wouldn't deliver. Yeah. And then I think 3-4 months in, we came across this video on YouTube called briefcase method. How do you impress somebody in an interview, right? Like you go with 6 pages. You only write down half a page maybe, but you at least show there are 6 pages saying मैंने 6 पन्ने का काम किया है. Right? And I think these tactics over time the arbitrage goes away, right? Like whatever.
सब लोग try करते हैं. सब लोग अब CV में वो 4 data point grew this by 40%, grew this managed team whatever of X people.
As if everyone is a statistician. That's the weird part, right? Like when you try to articulate your achievement, सबको पता है कि productivity 30% मैंने increase करी है.
तो the point is like sometimes I look at resumes and I'm like, man, even I wouldn't be able to put the work I have done. Like this. Even I'll have to take some few months off to actually sit and calculate कि
कितना परसेंट मैं ग्रोथ लेके आया हूँ.
By the way, this came down from MBA colleges, right? Like जैसे IIM में proper training होता है जब आप resume बनाते हो, तो every sentence you have to quantify your impact, right? Like so, it is not enough to say that like you were the first participant or you came first in like 10 people. Or to say top 100, top 10%. I was amongst the top 10%. It doesn't matter if 10 people were competing, right? Like, so that quantification in terms of percentages grew by this. और उसका arbitrage चला गया है. अभी वो resume देखता है तो समझ जाता है कि भाई
if anyone's actually like writing, you know, those 3 bullet points, this, that, I'm like, bro, ये तो late है, like, you know, to the trend. I want someone who is probably creating a new trend, right? Like कुछ website बनाया हुआ हो, right? You're always chasing people who are ahead of that, what is normal.
And
right
you can
now.
see on every resume what the person is trying to hide, yeah? So if the person says, let's say, I've done MBA from IIM Bangalore, and then they don't put the year, then you're like, yaar, isne to online wala kiya, right? Like, so people try to hide stuff and they think that, like, you know, so there is this online degree, like abhi Harvard se bhi shayad mil jati hogi, right? So people try to hide a lot of stuff on their resume.
If they do free classes from Harvard, then they will write my Harvard se padha. There's that as well.
So I'll tell you, like LinkedIn pe na, when I see some, like, of course, the way you scan LinkedIn, you look at DP, naam, whatever, like tagline, but instinctively वो दो लोगों दिख जाते हैं, like where you're working and then university.
Right.
If I see, and वो AI है ना अंदर, like वो मैच कर रहा है पैटर्न. If you see कि something is the company name, वो कुछ tagline English, something is not matching with the institution, my first instinct is to scroll down and see ये ऑफलाइन प्रोग्राम किया है फ्रॉम दैट पर्टिकुलर प्लेस या कुछ ये कोर्सेरा
पे
सर्टिफिकेट वाला वो कुछ कोर्स.
If you have too many certificates on your LinkedIn, that's a negative signal.
Yeah.
Like ये
Also, people should start realizing like we're past the era of certificate culture. क्या मिल जाएगा internship का certificate लेके, या मेरे को Google ने बता दिया SEO में मैं champion हूँ.
Bro, we do these free events every week, right? Like when we just give,
We are just riffing, right?
Like just like talking, you know, this.
So we had one person write in saying, "Sir, इसका certificate दे दीजिए ना."
Certificate for coming to a satsang, basically, right?
Yeah.
Like imagine that's what it has come to.
Yeah. So why are you not on Aastha TV then?
I mean, yeah, YouTube.
हमारा आस्था टीवी Zoom पे चलता है. Tuesdays and Thursdays, 8:30 p.m.
Yeah. What I've noticed about like what you were saying about resumes, right? I haven't built a professional resume in the last 2 years. I haven't had to, but I wanted to work in the arts. तो मैं इंडिया आर्ट फेयर पे अप्लाई करा एंड आई वाज लाइक मैं CV बनाऊंगा, भेजूंगा, सब कुछ करूंगा, देन आई विल बी वन इन ऑल दीज 10,000 people are applying. Instead, I sent a very many people thought it was cocky, but it worked in my case. I got the job. I sent an email saying, "Hi, I'm Vinamr. मेरे पास ये 3 चीज़ें जिसकी वजह से मैं बहुत बढ़िया तुम्हारा काम कर दूंगा. I'm willing to do whatever it takes." ठीक है. And I said, number 1, I just sent an email, no CV, nothing. मैंने यहाँ पे ऐसे से इतना पैसा रेज करा था यहाँ पे, not as a founder, right? Second, I run this podcast. Third, I've done this, and they called me and I got it. अब मैं CV भेजता, उसके अंदर मैं लिखता नहीं मैंने ये भी करा है, वो भी करा है. It just helped me stand out, right? And even though मेरा अपना business है, मैं अपना काम करता हूँ, I could still figure it out how to do it. Like otherwise, then I saw some other CVs. It's like just people are like 26 in writing. I was first in like a debate competition in school. I'm like, bro. They told us in college, like we had great professors who ran like CV writing centers, and like, college khatam, school khatam. Like don't start like, which is something a lot of people do.
So for example, hobbies, right? Like resume पे यार तुम लिख रहे हो मैं singing, dancing.
I don't care.
मैं उसका अचार डालूंगा यार. Like I'm trying to hire you for professional.
I think this is a way in which people are trying to signal that they're well-rounded, but it just comes off as like ignorant.
No, I think there is this concept called Sanskritization, or like, I think this needs a lot of education, and unfortunately our colleges don't do it. Is whenever you're trying to achieve something, there is a certain alpha in which you approach it, but that alpha goes away very quickly, right? Like for example, some sort of leverage, right?
Sanskritization,
like, right? जैसे अभी Ankur Variku, he tells people to cold email.
Yeah.
Now that definitely works.
Yeah.
But the moment everybody starts doing it, the alpha is gone, right? Because then if I start receiving 100 cold emails, I'm not going. If I'm receiving 1 or 2 or 5, maybe I'll respond to it.
He's upsetting all the cold email oligarchs because he's Democrat बना रहा है.
हाँ तो once things get democratized in a way, right? Like फिर the smart people stop doing that, they move on to their next thing, right? So I think there's always that cycle. It keeps on running like that. For example, I think most of the bakchod, you'll find them on the irony train. That's if I want to find a bakchod, I'll see who's appreciating ironic content, whatnot, right? Because they've probably transcended that normie wala,
wholesome wala,
phase. So it's that like people, and then everyone will arrive to that station. Like sabka time aayega, and then these people are probably gonna flock to, I don't know,
something else.
For example, Vipassana, it was like super cool. When you did it. When was that? Like
no, but that was 3 years back. I still think it is cool. But
now in the last whatever XYZ years, there's just like so much.
Thanks to people like Jack Dorsey also, where वो company बनाते हैं, फिर उनका जो personal lifestyle habits होते हैं, that's also something people aspire to and try to adapt, right? कि मैंने उसकी ट्वीट देखी थी, कह रहा मैं तो नींबू पानी पीता हूँ, हर जगह ट्विटर पे बुलाता हूँ, मैं ये बढ़िया लग रहा है, मैं भी करके देखता हूँ. It's like
so that's right, like daily rituals of whatever, like Tim Ferriss type, like of the greats. Like
doesn't make you great though. Like after having done all of this for years, like maybe 5 a.m. club कर रहा हूँ, it's just you can't like mimic someone's actions and get where they are, because there's also these other factors, right? Which is at some point I taught a cohort writing about threads. Ever since I've sort of, I don't see threads particularly well, because I've seen कि Twitter पे बहुत ज़्यादा in the name of posturing, a lot of like stupid like stuff is being sold. Like आपको 5 point लिखने में मैं like write anything, you know, like 10 marks के लिए. That's how people approach it.
That's a pretty good way of saying it, ना कि 5 वो स्कूल में नहीं बताते थे, 10 मार्क का क्वेश्चन है तो आधा पेज लिखना पड़ेगा तुमको, right? Like
so they're extrapolating from headings.
So, this is again by the way another example of what we were saying. At one point of time, like
writing
threads was like a big deal. You got respect. अब तो सब लोग thread लिख रहे हैं, people mute the whole thread emoji. फिर कोई thread का emoji change कर लेता है. Then that people, it's always small tweaks that people try to.
Now people take Wikipedia pages and create threads out of it. Right? Like they literally
machine हो गया. Like you go on Fiverr, you'll probably find people who can
write threads.
Pay and they'll write a thread for you. When it hits that level, right? जब Fiverr पे कोई gig बना लेता है उसका, तो वो खत्म हो गया. Like you have to probably move on. I think that's a good sign of fact that time आ गया to smart people.
That is true with people. Titles also, by the way, right? Like so, अभी जैसे founders office, so एकदम
it's a new title, right? It's just come around in the last year or so.
Or product management, for that matter, right? Now you will see 5 years later, these titles will become they won't be as aspirational, because अभी तो startup ने बोला founders office. फिर कोई तो एकदम बड़ा सा कॉर्पोरेट वो टाइटल को अडॉप्ट करेगा, फिर वहाँ पे बहुत सारे प्रोडक्ट मैनेजर्स और फाउंडर्स ऑफिस वाले बन जाएंगे. तो आई थिंक दिस साइकिल जस्ट
everything works on everything is cyclic, right? We think we've discovered some new shit, but then it just
there's this theory called the Fickle 500. ये social dynamics के अंदर when they're talking about like how certain venues are very popping at some point and then they start dying. The way it is like एक शहर के अंदर 500 लोग हैं जो fickle हैं, but they also happen to be thought leaders or influencers of some category, not in the internet sense, in the sense कि जो networks में वो involved हैं, they influence other people, right? It changes obviously with the internet क्योंकि अब बहुत और complications आ गई हैं. You don't know, like किसी के 10,000 follower होंगे, but they could influence more people than say someone with 1 million, right? You don't know. But in non-internet circumstances, there's the Fickle 500. So what these people do is they go to a new place and they're like, ये जगह है बढ़िया, right? Suddenly whoever is, so for example, let's just call them tier A, right? Tier A आता है, वो फिर tier A वहाँ पे chill करता है, tier B उसके बाहर खड़ा होता है, एक दिन मेरा भी नंबर आएगा, tier C और D को पता भी नहीं है. Then tier A realizes, fuck bro, tier B के लोग आ रहे हैं यार, exclusivity खत्म हो रही है, like हम तो chill थे, whatever, you know, like that shit. फिर tier B आता है. Once tier B comes in, then tier C comes in. Then by the time tier D comes in, that place is so just done with everything कि वो खत्म हो जाता है. By that time, Fickle 500 कहीं और जा चुके हैं, tier B उनके पीछे आ चुके हैं. It's just how these things work. Like you, for example, I remember there's this neighborhood in Delhi called House Village.
Yeah.
Right, you've been there.
In fact, like I'm going to tell you like what happened with us. I haven't. This is my first time in Delhi since 2014.
Yeah.
When I last came,
you came to House Village.
It was popping, right? Like that was the place to be apparently.
Exactly.
So this time मैंने बोला कि चलो House में मिलते हैं. People are like, bro, like that place is dead. I'm like, fuck, like what's happening?
There is actually this tier A, tier B, right? Like there is actually very nice terms for it. I think Vijaya wrote about it, right? Like the geeks, the sociopaths, and the mops.
Hi, this is the multiple, of course, internet writer thing boy frameworks.
अच्छा लगता है मेरे को mental models बहुत
mental models, right? Like whatever, there's that one framework और एक fancy term है evaporative cooling करके, which is essentially the same thing. Top people, once they see like not so cool people coming, they just like flock away somewhere else, and the whole cycle repeat. So सबका time आता है every.
वो हर जगह है ना. Maldives में if you go and you see a lot of Indians around you, you are like यार ये इतना cool नहीं है यार, मैं तो इतना पैसा देके आया ही इसलिए.
आप mainland से तो दूर थोड़ी. What did you expect? Yeah. What are you hoping to have your life miraculously changed to like यहाँ पे? But like I remember Raj, when I was talking to you इससे पहले हम बात कर रहे थे on Twitter. You were like, bro, हम लोग Bangalore move कर रहे हैं. And like when we spoke in the lockdown, you were very happy Goa-based entrepreneur. फिर आप लोग अब Bangalore जा रहे हो, फिर तो आपसे मतलब your lives are going to change. You're going to be like you're going to be Bangalore entrepreneurs with other founders just going to the massive city. So what is the next move for Stoa? Are you like moving away from cohort-based courses and heading into new territory? What is happening?
I think cohort-based courses, I say, they're probably a transitionary phase, right, to something else, because it's on its own. It was a great pandemic phenomena, but if you want to build like not only a business, but more than that, a system that outlasts you, an institution that goes on, right, that is defensible in the future, you probably need more safeguards and more systems than just like chalo aao padho 6 mahine ke baad tata bye bye, right? And we are making a few changes to the model, right? And pretty excited about that. In fact, I think we realized ki in business roles, that's what we help people, on both sides to get better at, as well as for startups and corporates to hire, right, in these business MBA kind of roles. Realize ki ye ABCD tick tick karke you can't really figure out, or interview leke CV deke you can't just figure out ki which chap can do the work, get the work done consistently. So we're trying to actually build a very interesting system that is like a CFA, CA, right? Like when you have to really prove your mettle, you have to really grind it out, prove your mettle, that you will make it work on the job, and then you get to be a part of this Stoa professional charter, right? Charter of business professionals. That can get the job done. You can rely on these people.
Are there any like government mandated charters that exist? For example, मुझे पता है bar council होता है और वो CA वगैरह भी होता है. ऐसे overall for like management specific startup specific jobs, is there something already?
Not really, because I think the reason why lawyers as well as your CAs sort of interface with the government infrastructure, right? Like IT department, income tax ho ya, MCA ho ya, in this case the courts, legal system, legal code. What we are dealing with is more of the free market, private sector, so to say. So वहाँ पे regulations ऐसे नहीं है कि government mandates कि ये license चाहिए आपको.
But I mean the professional bodies have done it, right? Like, so if you look at CFA or even CA for that matter, it's a professional. It's professional organization, right? And CFA in fact started as an alternative to MBA in finance. So
I know a friend who does a degree as a CFA.
So see, our realization fundamentally was that there is a reason why things are a certain way. I mean, of course you want to make them better and all of that. If you think of typical MBA does 4 things really well. One, it upskills people. कुछ तो पढ़ाया जाता है 2 साल में, है ना. दूसरा एक network बनता है, कुछ community बनता है, so you have people to fall back upon, get connection. The third is it gives you a long-term signal, right? Like one of the reasons why risk taking is, why IIT or IIM or BITS folks are able to take risks is उनको पता है कि यार मेरा कुछ भी like 2 साल 3 साल waste भी हो जाए तो उसके बाद भी मुझे कुछ मिलेगा कहीं से. So there is a long-term signal. Raj is a good example, right? And then the fourth is it gives you the first big break. Like, it shifts your orbit. Like, one of the reasons why people go to an MBA, and I'm not talking about tier 1 institutions, I'm talking about tier 2 institutions, is that is the only way you can cross that 10 lakh barrier in terms of salary. उसके पहले सारे 3-4 लाख 5 लाख पे सब अटके हुए होते हैं. एंड देन द होप इज़ यार मैं ये 15 लाख 20 लाख स्पेंड करूँगा तो 10 के आगे पहुँच जाऊँगा, फिर आगे से कंपाउंड होगा, वो तो मेरे पे है, राइट. एंड एनी सिस्टम दैट एक्चुअली हेल्प्स बिजनेस प्रोफेशनल सक्सीड need to replicate all of those 4 things, which is learning, network, long-term signal, and then first big break. हमारा current model में, and I think this is a problem with a lot of cohort-based courses, is just learning is not a sufficient signal. कि मैंने सिर्फ प्रोडक्ट के बारे में पढ़ लिया या मार्केटिंग के बारे में पढ़ लिया तो मैं मार्केटर नहीं बन जाता. Which means there needs to be some sort of credentialing that over long term employers recognize. And when he says we are moving into a more CFA-like system, we are essentially saying we want to build that credential. That credential is not an entry gate like CAT. CAT में लोगों को एंट्री गेट पे फिल्टर कर रहे हैं, या GMAT में एंट्री गेट पे फिल्टर कर रहे हैं. 3 लाख लोग भाग रहे हैं, उसमें से अगर आप पहले 1000 में आ जाओ तो आप ABC में जाओगे. And then you charge people a bomb, right? Like it's 25 lakhs or 30 lakhs or 40 lakhs. What we are saying is at our price point, we probably want to replicate a CFA-like model where you come, you learn, you get access to the community. But for you to earn the long-term signal, you need to pass the exit gate.
और कोई कंपनीज बोले हम मानते नहीं है, we don't believe in this certification, हम तो यही यूज़ करेंगे, और like this is null and void because it isn't like someone is like the government, like a state is mandating ये करना है. It's just you guys creating this in like a ecosystem of thousands other startups, right? So
I think that's our problem to solve, right? Like if we cannot prove to people that these people will actually get the job done, there is some issue with our
credentialing
judgment essentially. So that is like we probably don't want to land
so
up
the simplest way to put Vinamra is we want to say that hey, we are good at spotting talent. ये बोल रहे हैं, we are dating them, हम उनके साथ 6 महीना 8 महीना 9 महीना बिता रहे हैं. We are dating them so that you can marry them
successfully.
Yeah.
If I'm dating like shitty people and when they get married the companies see कि भाई ये marriage तो सही नहीं चल रहा है, over time we are going to lose brand trust.
Right.
And it takes time to build brand, right? So we are okay, we are patient with that. But अभी कल ही हम हमारे अभी तक के जो learners है, right, fellows है, we were just checking कि भाई इसको अगर मैं इसके लिए मैं वाउच करना चाहता हूँ तो मैं क्या वाउच करूँगा, राइट. एंड आई गेट दीज बजेस फ्रॉम फाउंडर्स अ लॉट ऑफ टाइम्स सेइंग कि अरे ये स्टोआ फेलो है, व्हाट इज़ योर फीडबैक ऑन दैट. तो अभी मेरे लिए प्रॉब्लम ये होता है कि आई माइट नॉट हैव स्पेंट इनफ टाइम विद एवरी सिंगल पर्सन हु इज़ गोइंग थ्रू स्टोआ राइट नाउ. सो दिस इज़ अ वे फॉर अस टू वाउच कि भाई ये अगर मैं बोल रहा हूँ कि ये लेवल 1 है तो at Stoa we would hire him for a particular role at a particular compensation level.
Yeah.
अगर मैं L2 बोल रहा हूँ, and see that is what is very interesting and maybe it's a double-edged sword also, is हमारा mental model हमेशा ये कि भाई मैं इसको Stoa में hire करूँगा या नहीं करूँगा, तो क्या role में hire करूँगा, कितना compensation दूँगा. So that is what we are trying to.
So we building out that hierarchy to hai in terms of competence, right?
It's needed also.
Yeah, I mean we are just crystallizing it, we are just making it more explicit कि ये यहाँ पे है. Whoever participates in the system, whoever willingly volunteers to get like categorized, graded, so to say, we want to not only help them see where they stand and help companies see where they stand, but at the same time help them get better, right? Your life doesn't end at the initial point to tell you कि ये करना है, for you to classify for the next sort of set of
there is in fact a very interesting word that we now use frequently within our team. It's tough love, right? Like, so what we want to do is if a person comes and joins Stoa community, we want them to do better, but we are going to hold them to a higher standard. अभी तक सिर्फ cohort based model में प्रॉब्लम क्या है कि people feel that if they have paid you then you owe them a particular thing, like you can't give them reality check कि भाई तुझको बनना है product manager, but नहीं अभी you are not there, you maybe need 2-3 years more, some other experience. Why don't you get into a marketing job? Why don't you manage a few more, and then maybe you will be ready.
Yeah.
So वो थोड़ा system हम create करना चाहते हैं, which is like, you know, we are able to give people a sense of reality at the same time encouraging them to do better.
So how do people get proof of work done? क्योंकि अब तो like we were discussing CVs, right? Personal websites. Are we talking about Twitters, LinkedIn's? Because I know a lot of people who have just hired because one, they were repeatedly after me, and second, उनका proof of work पूरे internet पे था that I could see, you know, which is unlike a CV that could be potentially fabricated.
I think there are two aspects to it. One is actually doing the work, right, and the other is presenting it or distributing it, putting it up to pull in people to see it or easily Google your name and get a quick judgment of what this person is, right? So what we want to say is that once you flash your level, someone comes to you and says ki boss, I'm level 2, you know, and these people have said ki I'm level 2. I'll, like, over the long period of time, like in the next 1-2 years, let's say, you should know कि okay, इन लोगों का बार हाई है या ऐसे लोगों को ये participation certificates नहीं देते हैं, right? Like this is actually a credential given to someone who's been through a lot of pain.
And by the way, this is actually, in the short term at least, we know it is going to backfire, right? Like
people are going to get pissed off.
हाँ. So थोड़ा slow चलेगा शुरू में, and we are okay with that.
So do you have metrics for this? Like how do you decide like a level, for example? Is it like number of internships held, consistency?
So I think the model here to replicate, and that is what we are actually working through right now, is PhD, right? PhD में देखो proof of work होता है, तुमको 2-3-4 पेपर पब्लिश करने हैं, then you need your thesis, you need to defend it in front of a jury. In some
you have to basically become a published scholar.
Yeah. हाँ. तो वो so इसलिए हम ABCD ने MCQ नहीं करा रहे हैं लोगों से कि MCQ करके L1 L2 नहीं बोल रहे हैं कि प्रोडक्ट का क्वेश्चन पूछा इसने B आंसर सही दिया. That is not what it is, right? You need to do the work, and that becomes your proof of work actually. So as you go through the process of getting that charter, what you do is your proof of work.
And I think there are a lot of people who appear great on the internet, but when you just talk to them or give them actual work to do, you realize कि ये तो बेचने में माहिर है, अपने आप को बेचने में माहिर है, can't do anything beyond that, right? There's that happens. So you hire a lot of people who look cool, do good interviews, but then job पे फटती है. Then there are people, by the way, who do brilliant work but have absolutely no idea how to peddle themselves to on the market, right? Like sell themselves on the market. ज़्यादातर ops sort of roles, right? Product folks and marketing वाले folks वो Twitter पे, LinkedIn पे अपना ढोल बजाने में like expert है. These poor ops people get like jacked because they that's not their selling themselves is not their competency, and it doesn't, I mean, fair enough, na? It doesn't have to be something that you expect out of everyone. So we can vouch for these people as well. At the same time, not letting people who are just like trying to bullshit their way through past the gate, right? That is the whole idea. Only people who are competent sort of get through.
So how do you actually hire leaders and not thought leaders, right? मतलब ये है.
उसी note पे I had this funny incident where I just started hiring for Dostcast, and I have a permanent team, but just like let's try out some freelancers also. So some freelancers were like, you know, we solid proof of work. They don't have a solid proof of work in the email. They don't have a single social media profile, right? I don't know where this person lives, whatever, like थोड़ा सा मेरे लिए red flag है. And then there's this other person who says मैंने हजारों creator के लिए काम करा है, मैं बहुत बड़ा आदमी हूँ, etc. etc. Okay, let's put it to test. Put both guys to test. One guy did fantastically well. The one with just the email proof of work, मैंने ये काम करा है. The other guy took 10 days to make one thing, and then he's like, hey guys, a thread on how I worked with the number Kasana's like, this is dead. So that's what I'm saying. It's just posh, and I get people's need to social climb. सबको करना होता है, हर कोई आदमी चाहता है कि उसका उत्थान हो और बड़ी जगह पे जाए, but it's like paper tigers. It's all.
See, I mean, all of this, na, thought leadership, personal branding, I mean, you can't short circuit the process. तुम काम करना पड़ेगा तब बनोगे ना, मतलब and I think वही होता है when there is Twitter ज्ञान, और like I'm pretty sure like some people come to our, हम भी ज्ञान देते, तो हमारे सेशन में आके उनको लग रहा है राज ने बोला पर्सनल ब्रांड करना है, ये 5 स्टेप है तो अब करेंगे. But you need to do the work, right? Like you need to actually have stories, experiences. उसके बिना like, then it's fluffy.
The point is, I can't help you be interesting. If you are interesting, probably can help you show the world how you are interesting.
Right.
But you need to be interesting in the first place. And that is something that only you and you yourself can figure out, right? For your own sake. It's not something else. Like it's not something that someone else you can outsource. So someone else can come in and help you with. वो तो अंदर से ही आता है. So that is my first disclaimer कि to have a personal brand या whatever on earth you want to put it up as, you have to have some substance. पहले go build that, फिर come and think about this personal brand. Otherwise you will probably this has happened multiple times when I've done ref check on people. Reference check, right? Like you call like people who they have previously worked with and ask what went down, what happened. And people are like, ये बोलता या बोलती बहुत है, but काम तो होता नहीं.
This is another thing that a lot of people don't know, right? That very likely your potential employer is going to call your previous manager.
Actually call. It's not just like हम करते हैं ऐसा but नहीं करते. ये actually करते हैं.
हाँ. जैसे हम
if they don't, then God bless them, right? Like God bless that company.
And that is why, a lot of times, I mean, you might have a totally shitty experience at a place, but a professional would leave a place on at least okay terms, if not totally bad terms, because like those reputations do get built, and लोगों को idea नहीं है कि what went down. Maybe your manager was shitty. But if I call up your manager and they say कि नहीं उसने तो ऐसा किया वैसे किया वगैरह वगैरह, I am trying to minimize regret in a hiring decision, right? So I would just move on to the next candidate. तो ये सब भी होता है, and a lot of people don't know कि मैंने अगर resume पे कुछ लिखा है and then I call up the person and वो से कि यार ये तो पूरा credit ले रहा है पूरी टीम का खुद के लिए.
इतना specific हो जाता है.
हाँ, so there are blogs on how do you ref check well, what are the questions you should ask. One of the questions you would ask is, would you hire this person again? Right? And if the person hesitates, right? Like if a person hesitates, like most people would say yes, because they don't want to tank somebody's job. But if they hesitate, that's a signal.
I'll probably just go like this.
तो थोड़ा दूर तो नहीं हो गया?
नहीं सही है. All is good. हाँ, I'm just wondering, when you were talking to hiring managers, like कुछ ऐसी बातें बताते हैं वो जैसे juicy gossip कि यार मैं थक गया हूँ लोगों को हायर कर करके, like are there any particular things that strike to them about candidates that you've learned from them and in the process of building this new direction that you're taking for Stoa?
I remember one particular ref check and I'm pretty sure that person must have felt a bit shocked because he went through the whole process, etc., and then I called 2 of his previous managers and both of them said he's lazy.
Wow.
He talks a lot but he's lazy, right? And we did not end up hiring him. And in fact, we have this conversation very frequently कि भाई इसको हमने मना, we said no because of negative ref check, and now our competitor has hired them.
Or some random company has hired them. They're like, what do we think about that company and
their hiring practices?
Right now. So like, it's very difficult to tell, like, are you the idiot? Is someone else the idiot? Is everyone an idiot? Like, is everyone really smart? I mean, you're always like questioning everything, right? And it's not a great place to be in, but I'm sure we also probably hire people that other people reject and they would probably be like, ये देखो इसको hire कर लिया इन लोगों ने, ये कितने चूतिया है, right? So judgment at the end of the day, it's all
I mean, one ref check is negative is okay. 2 ref checks negative.
Shit, I've never done a ref check. I probably should also get on that, huh?
Yeah. It's difficult to do it with people who do not have a history. Right? Like, for example, an 18-19-year-old.
इस शहर में एकदम पे लैंड हो गया, कोई वजूद नहीं है, कौन है ये, इसकी मुंह में एक मार्क है बस.
हाँ, तो it's difficult to do it with people like who are just starting off in their career. Sometimes you just got to take a bet on people. But once they gather enough experience, फिर तो like you better be doing it for your own like safety, because a bad hire sets you back by
6 months.
6 months.
For real?
Yeah, I mean...
So, the way it works
it compounds, it starts compounding his...
No, not that. I would interview somebody, I would roll them an offer, they would join 1 month later. It would take me 3 months to figure out this person is not working out. So I let them go. I start another hiring process that takes another 2 months to close, right? And if it is a really critical role, it sets you back. Like, I was listening to some podcast yesterday where they said, like, your entry level engineer, he can make a mistake that can be rectified in a day. Your engineering manager can make a mistake that can be rectified in 2 weeks. But if your VP or your leader makes a mistake, it probably takes 6 months or 9 months to rectify. Either
if Tim Cook makes a mistake, it'll take Apple like 2-3 years.
Like that.
So if Tim Cook ka example tha, if Tim Cook makes a mistake, it will probably set Apple back by 5-10 years.
Wow.
So the stakes only keep on.
Those guys are walking on eggshells, right? That's why all the meditation and least exposure to public.
Yeah.
Only in keynotes.
Yeah. No, and वो दूसरा वो भी होता है ना, as you become तुम company बड़ा होते जाता है ना, so then you have all these people who are trying to protect you from saying wrong things, right? Like, I'm pretty sure Tim Cook has some 5-level approval process in terms of what needs to go out in his name.
Yeah. Then there's Elon Musk, but it's.
Which is what I love. He's broken every single PR rule and he knows what he's doing. So,
I mean, you either break all the rules and that becomes your brand, or you just be like.
You can't half-ass it.
You can't half-ass it. Right?
Hey guys, वैसे मेरी कभी नहीं फटती लेकिन आज मेरी फट गई. It's like, how does that work out?
You have to either be fully nanga or fully clothed. You can't be
Yeah, I was reading this old PhD guy Robert Cialdini की किताब है Influence, and he was talking about our need to appear consistent in public. Right? He was sharing this example कि एक बंदी थी, एक बंदा था, बंदा बहुत ज़्यादा पीता था, बंदी ने कहा मैं छोड़ के जा रही हूँ, कह रहा मैं पीना छोड़ दूंगा, कह रही नहीं छोड़ेगा. Then she almost marries another guy. This guy comes back, नहीं मैं पक्का छोड़ रहा हूँ. She's like fine. Then he starts drinking again. But she's like, I love him more now because he realized कि यही मेरा बंदा है और यही सारा सीन है और कोई बात नहीं दारू पीता था. But the point was in her need to be consistent with her what she said first, right? She went all the way and now she justifies it. So ऐसे ही I think with him or anyone else doing it online, you can't say कि, hey guys, I was saying this, oh sorry, tweet deleted. It's a risk, right? Because people are also watching, like you said before, the things that you're not saying, the things that you're avoiding. It's better to be all out consistent and just look like a complete fool than be half-assing it थोड़ा देख के.
नहीं, in fact, बहुत business की theory में जाएं तो brand is consistency. Brand दूसरा क्या है, right? So if you're consistent, then brand gets built.
Right.
If Stoa is doing something today and tomorrow we start doing something random, तो नहीं बनेगा brand. But you have to do it to the point where you become boring, right?
The experience is predictable. That's what you want when you go to a particular Marriott ka hotel or a McDonald's. Right. You know that bloody burger. It sucks, but you know that it sucks. It's bad, but it's consistently bad. You wanna get to that consistency.
Yeah, and what do you guys think? You guys have 12.6k followers on your Twitter, this Stoa handle, right? Usually what I found is when there are companies or startups running their independent Twitter handles, not unanimously, काफी बार मैंने देखा है, one, the tone is inconsistent, right? It just shows कि कहीं ना कहीं अभी आज इस intern ने लिख दिया होगा, आज इस intern ने लिख दिया होगा, right? And that's a big giveaway that they're just putting it on autopilot. Number 2 ऐसा होता है, with no actual faces representing it, it just becomes like an account that either has to be hospitable to people or engage in discussion, because it's not like कि Raj or Aditya are saying कि guys, whatever. But you guys do a pretty good job with that. What I've noticed, I was talking to a few Stoa fellows before this to understand कि क्या चलता है. One thing almost everyone had the same opinion on is कि bro vibe तो बढ़िया है. I met a lot of friends, I had fun, and I was at your LinkedIn then, and then I saw that your sound bubble is playing disco. I thought you were gonna
rickrolling people, right?
Yeah, I thought you were gonna pronounce your last name, but you did not. But that's what I'm saying. Ki it's difficult to set tone in a way where you're not involved actively, right? How have you guys cracked that angle?
By being involved, right? Last night also I was tweeting through the Stoa handle, whatnot, shit posting. And see, the funny thing is I go on LinkedIn and I play people coming in expecting, I don't know who on earth will come there, whatever executive of some companies will probably try and hire from us, like student, VC, parent, koi bhi ho sakta hai, will come and click on that. And I often wonder, should I change it? You know,
should not.
And then 2 days later, I got a message like, bro, I got rickrolled. Thanks. You know, I didn't expect that on LinkedIn.
Oh, what's a rickroll?
Rickroll is the whole Rick Astley wala, never gonna give you up, never gonna let you down. Wo Gana hai na? When you're presented with that song, when you least expect it, right? In places. Okay. So you're baited to, hey guys, like, look at my photos with whatever, chandi down and... But it's
it's like that cake brand. You get caked sometimes.
So this is like an internet, whatever, like insider kind of joke that's been running. 4chan pe start hua tha. And I was like, how about we bring it to the place that you least expected? That
LinkedIn.
Is like LinkedIn, like name pronunciation, especially for a name that's, you know, like
professionals
no one knows.
Ka sacred gad.
Like especially for a name that no one knows how to pronounce, like including me myself, right? Mere naam bhi dal diya and that's it. With the Stoa brand handle, like oftentimes internally every once in a while we're like, hum to school, whatever, we're like an education, whatever, this, that, we're like formal banna hai, bhai, like band karo ye shit posting, but then you put it up and it works.
The other thing about consistency, right? Like, see, Raj or me sometimes, we are a lot of times faces to what the team does.
Yeah.
And I think we have been fortunate enough to attract people. And most of our early hires are people who came in saying, boss, I want to work for Stoa. And then they have taste. मैं तो ये बोलूँगा कि a lot of times.
That's so huge. Because you can't teach taste.
हाँ. तो वो लोग हैं शुरू में जो हमको join किए लोग, and you know now they are 18 months into the org. A lot of those people did have taste. मतलब शायद मैं बोलूँगा कि मुझे भी, like when I started working with Raj and all of that, I have learned personally a lot about content and all of that, right? मैं नहीं करता था. मैं if you go back 2 years, you won't find, like I don't think I was on Twitter also by that time. But so वो हम लोगों को लगता है कि you know we are the faces or whatever, but there is a team, and I'm not just saying it because you know बोलने के लिए, but there is actually a team which does all the legwork, the hard work, right? And they take pride in their craft.
Right.
और होता है मतलब कभी-कभी we slip up, but वो Twitter का you can if not edit, you can delete it. So
there's a lot of second guessing that happens because when you're trying to be so different, you always wonder कि you feel so lonely out there, and you're like, what's going on? Like, are we trying to be too different? Like, we're being ourselves, but like, how will people perceive it, whatnot, right? Will they see the, you know, read between the lines, whatnot? But so far we've been like lucky.
I think our website has been inconsistent. मतलब website पे we have gone from saying कि boss, if you're competent, you will get a job, to get a job, to like you know be competent.
Positioning statement बदलती रहती है वही
थोड़ी हाँ
तो वहाँ हिचकिच है ना कि should we cave in, right? Should we cave in or should we hold the fort? So I think we finally landed onto you can call it a compromise, but it's also a very interesting way of holding the fort yet giving people what they want to hear, so to say. It marries these two things.
कि भाई level cross करो तो उसके बाद तो हम मतलब ये तो level cross करोगे उसके बाद नहीं हुआ the outcome that you expect, तो either my talent management team sucks or my exam sucks, मतलब उसके बाद I can't blame it on you. I mean the blame is on me if I take you past a level and vouch for you and then the market is not recognizing it. So that is the compromise sort of to say, right? Like,
what do you guys think is going to happen to all these edtech companies who have been selling courses and helping people upskill for so long in the pandemic, which was maybe an isolated behavior? So what do you think is going to happen? Because I certainly see a lot more people going out now, not buying. मैं personally बता रहा हूँ anecdotes, like sample size of 10 maybe, right? Not buying as many courses, looking to invest their time in social activities more than like upskilling and professional growth. Like that's like based on, again, anecdotes. What do you guys think about that?
So I think about like, you know, forget that COVID ever happened, let's say, right? Those 2 years were a fever dream almost. Go before that, see what really worked. I mean, big fat promises, which actually one could deliver on, कि ये You get into an IIM, let's say, तेरी life बदल जाएगी. You get into IIT bits, whatnot, life will change, whatnot. So, or you go abroad and, you know, like complete different scene there. So, big outcomes, like big delta, right? Big change in from where you are right now to where we can take you. That'll hold true, right? In some form or the other. थोड़े छोटे मोटे incremental ये तो nice to haves are probably gonna, you know, get. So
I think the way to summarize it is where there are economic outcomes, those things will always survive.
Solid economic outcomes, even if the probability is low, people will still, like, you know, take a bet on themselves and figure out कि, you know,
so
हो रहा है या नहीं हो रहा है.
Emeritus, right? Like, or Eruditus, whatever the company, and that they were pretty big even before.
Sorry, who is this?
Eruditus. This is a edtech company. I think it's now a unicorn.
India में?
हाँ. They are in five. They are Indian company. They are in 5 continents now.
Okay.
And very well distributed. Unka use case was always that if you're on the other side of 30, you don't have an MBA or, you know, you don't have a certification for promotion, you need to make a case. So we'll get you an exec MBA from Harvard, Stanford, Columbia, etc., etc.
They link the two together.
Yeah. And these people always have to make a case, like, you know, if you have been in Infi or Wipro for 15 years, now if you want to make a case for your promotion, you need an MBA.
Right.
So वहाँ पे काफ़ी clear economic outcome है क्योंकि यार मैं if it is on my resume, I'm going to get promoted and I'm going to paid more. So
it's the same as like now people do it themselves. America में तो करते ही हैं, but like in India when people are trying to apply abroad for education, they hire a counselor because the intent is so that I get into a good college. So that is when like वो तो तय ही है. To get to a good college.
Education, see, higher education has always been, I mean, it has promise of economic outcome, right? Like JEE भी तुम 2 साल लोग घिसते क्यों हैं कि भाई IIT में घुस जाऊंगा तो
मिल गया तो
CAT क्यों करते हैं? So education, at least like post 12th, has always promised some sort of economic freedom or like outcome. तो वो जब तक
unless it's like esoteric performing arts वाली चीजें जो कि वहाँ पे guaranteed नहीं है, but like solid.
उसका तो मार्केट भी बड़ा छोटा है ना, मतलब सी इट्स अ मैटर ऑफ प्रिविलेज आल्सो ना, परफॉर्मिंग आर्ट वगैरह का मतलब इट्स
आइदर पीपल हु हैव सेफ्टी नेट like you know safety net, or you've chosen that lifestyle.
You're crazy, right? Like where you don't care about,
but then it has to work. Then it has to work. Otherwise you're screwed. Right, which is different from say like doing a JEE, because that's a blanket bet. वो किधर भी चल जाएगी ना.
Very whatever. Any foreign education is pretty much for most people. It's like immigration. Like it's a path clear. Like हमें Indians को कोई नहीं ऐसे लेने वाला है ना easily. You either get IIT bits whatever this and then get transported out, exported basically, or you go there and then figure. Like
so for example, I'll tell you a simple use case, right? Canada has a certain grading system for their PR. Now, if there is a company which is getting people more points on that scale, that company is going to do well. मतलब लोग social करेंगे कुछ, like, you know. But having said that, next 6-9 months there is going to be a lean patch because people will go back, you know, have more fun in life. They'll go out, travel, so on and so.
भूल जाएंगे वो upskill gods थे एक time पे.
हाँ, like
फिर उनको realize होगा कि यार अगर हर साल मुझे मालदीव जाना है तो मुझे थोड़ा तो ज़्यादा कमाना पड़ेगा ना, तो कहाँ पे upskill करूँगा?
I think the pandemic simplified our lives to a lot of extent. Like you have to be in your house and go, जो भी तुम्हारा bubble है उसके अंदर रहो, and then just do things in front of a screen or like spend time away from a screen because you've had too much. It was simpler. Now suddenly all the complex social dynamics of having a family, a social life, dost yaar, cheezein, events, right? You're being called to them. It's no longer just opening a screen and saying hi.
We've rediscovered that the world exists.
Yes.
I mean, like I actually went out and I was like, interesting, this is a thing, right? Like I'd completely forgotten, like 18 months were enough to
the day before we went to Cyber Hub, and
how did you guys like it,
bro? Like I was like, this is consumerism, like
at its
peak, man. Like those screens, HD, I don't know, plus, like I didn't know this was
Cyber Hub is a weird mix of Gurgaon social elite plus office workers, and those two chime together. मतलब सब अच्छे कपड़ों में एकदम ऐसे घर से ही वेंसडे को ब्रंच के लिए आ रहे होंगे, ऐसे लोग भी होंगे, और फिर वो मतलब जो शर्ट पैंट और लेदर के शूज़ के अंदर सिगरेट पीते हुए आ रहे होंगे, and those two worlds meet because it's all office buildings, but the brands there are all like things that the social elite want to buy.
Right.
Yeah, but Gurgaon is like pretty good, like in sense कि one of my friends was saying if you want to do sales, you have to be in Gurgaon. If you want to build something, you have to be in Bangalore. Would it? Yeah.
I tweeted last night ki, Delhi youngsters, Bangalore youngsters rather think about making something cool.
Yeah.
Whereas Delhi mein, like, all the young people who we've met, they're like trying to like
make money.
Kaise? Kahan se? Like arbitrage dhoond ke.
Yeah.
I'll squeeze some, few lakhs out of there. That sort of a spirit, right? Which I think is very refreshing in a way, because it focuses, like, you're trying to smell value everywhere you go and see ki kahan pe jam nahi raha hai, like main glue ban jaunga. And it's not an intellectual exercise.
Yeah, it's just how we've been raised. It's our orientation. Like, if you think about it, people around Delhi are more likely to pursue real estate and material possessions, and not in the sense that you're materialistic, but it's just the world you've sort of grown around, right? Whereas, like, I don't know, like, people in Bangalore would be like, can I build, like, have the greatest idea ever? Which is something I unanimously think कोई बोलता है ना, bro, मेरा idea दुनिया बदलेगा. यहाँ बोलते हैं, क्या कह रहा है तू? Like, it's not tolerated only.
Like, no, I think founder personalities में बहुत अच्छे से reflect होता है, right? Like, so if you think of founders from Gurgaon or NCR, you have Dipinder, you have VSS, Ashneer is also from here, right? So they have very in your face kind of, very public personas.
Yeah.
You think of Bangalore founders. Matlab, it is difficult to, like, come up with names. At least
they don't, people, but they don't show up, feel like
they really follow Naval Ravikant's, be anonymous.
Pretty. It's that sort of a vibe rather than a loud. It's more of a soft boy, vibe in Bangalore, like aesthetics karenge. Whereas Delhi is like throw money on your face, and because that's what works, right? Like that sort of a thing. Which I think on their own I equally respect both. Like, because I'm an outsider, right? I'm an outsider just observing, like, on Twitter what's going on. That's been my window.
There should be 10,000 more startups in Goa, so that you can monopolize that market and be like, bro, yehi shirt pehni padegi. Goa ke entrepreneur to yehi pehante hain.
See, my critique of Goa is the moment people land up in Goa, they're already in holiday mindset.
Because that's a brand, right? Like that is
to the Goa's brand.
Goa ke personal branding solid. It's been intact for years.
Yeah.
So just imagine, like, where do I go on a vacation? It's pretty tough, dude. Like, people at least have their aspiration कि चलो हम light लेने के लिए, break लेने के लिए गोवा चले जाते हैं. When you're in Goa, you're just like, and you're working your ass off.
Yeah, you should just go to like a hot desert, or ऐसा कोई.
I have come to one, right? Like,
मतलब, like, I'm just, it's very weird. No, we discussed that last time as well. Like, when you live in paradise, what is paradise to you? You probably have to just go inside.
Yeah, just like we think. I'm like, chalo pahadon mein chalte hai. Like, that's the dream, whatnot, right? You want to go far, somewhere far. Basically, it's that you want to just be jolted out of.
See, the problem with to पहाड़ों में जाने के लिए, the problem is वहाँ पे airport बहुत दूर होता है यार. Like, Goa में तो you land, you're at the beach in like an hour.
So I think that is underrated about Goa. The connectivity is just kind of there, right?
Really?
Once you land, that's hard to find, but at least you can land there, right?
Yeah, I was seeing this India in Pixels. This friend of mine, Ashraf, who's also on the podcast. He made this infographic India के map के अंदर. So, like, I think दिल्ली के अंदर 11% households like own cars, and then Goa में 45% था. It was the highest ever in India. Like almost 50% of Goa's households have to have a car.
Or two.
Because you can't go.
And an Activa.
Like, bike to rent out.
One for yourself, one to rent out, of course.
Yeah, it's a very weird model where, like, even if you live there, you still operate like semi-tourist industry के अंदर कुछ अपना.
So I think this is a response to the tweet that I put out, right, about this Delhi Bangalore thing.
Yeah.
Someone replied, "Goa youngsters wonder how can I rent this?" Which I thought was like it's pretty accurate. Like, so to say, a lot of people are just like.
दादी चल पसी होम से बना देते हैं.
Landlords, and like they just build a room on top of what exists and like put that on Airbnb, right?
Yeah.
Like वो economy बन गया, like renter वाला economy बन गया.
Just so Israeli youngsters can discover themselves and the meaning of life.
Yeah, after like being on the
Asgaon.
No, after like actually being on the whole conflict, वो Palestine.
हाँ, तो वो chill करने India ही आते हैं ना. They find India. Yeah. About Goa's PR, what's funny is like. we had like these rumors coming, bro, Russian mafia Goa को बर्बाद कर रहा है, you know, ऐसे like nothing happened, bro, casinos Goa के ऐसे कर रहे हैं, bro. All of this stuff kept coming in through the years, and everyone's like, bro, Goa is still chill, you know, and most people go to Calangute and Baga and just ruin their lives, you know. But then some, oh my god, sorry, मेरा alarm क्यों बज रहा है? Yeah, some like one of my friends are like, bro, if you want to like discover real Goa, go to hipster Goa, like North Goa में Arambol, Vagator, bro, बड़े अच्छे cafes हैं, avocado खाओ, bro, like it's, you know, new age digital nomad dream, all that jazz. And then you're like, bro, मैं मापुसा से operate करता हूँ, like
that's a weird place to be in, right? Like you're in a village, you're grinding it out, you're talking to an investor.
But Mapusa is also North Goa only.
It's not Goa, but like
it's a little toward the center, right?
It's a hub, like it's North Goa का biggest like बाजार चलता है वहाँ पे, like मिर्ची विर्ची बेचते हैं लोग. And I'm just like tucked in some bloody village, 300 Mbps internet, and you're talking to like investors and stuff. They're like, when's the last time you went to the beach? I'm like, I don't really remember. And
in fact, I remember we had our team meeting, and the only people who did not go into the sea were native Goans, right? Like everybody else is.
So, घर की मुर्गी दाल बराबर. Basically, it boils down to that, right?
I've been spending a lot of time around events, and I think physical events, mein, like a lot of cool things can happen. You guys are a vada pav meetup, right?
Vada pav in Bombay, chole bhature. Around here, like dosa
in
Bangalore and misal pav in.
And people
Pune.
come for that. Don't they say ki yaar, as a thought leader, I obviously don't eat gluten.
I don't because my founder life, you know, it's
I mean, यार free
बाल सफेद हो रहे हैं, like
अरे free में इतना ही मिलेगा यार, मतलब free में I mean we can't take care of your dietary preferences. It is free, yeah.
But have those been great? Because
apparently, like we only went to the
one
dosa wala meetup, and then people expected us to show up everywhere, but हम तो मिठाई वाले like वो नहीं है that we will, you know, हलवाई नहीं है कि we'll go.
Yeah, your Haldirams, there's several chains. You're not going to find actual like one person with last name
I think the meetups were great, right? Like, and हमने अभी किसी का एक सुना, so I mean we met that guy yesterday. I think he was struggling with stammering 2 साल lockdown में, and he said the first time I came to that chole bhature meetup in Delhi, that was the time I could talk to people, and you know I could actually. It was first time in my life actually where I spoke to so many people, and they were not very judgmental of me stammering. These have been great. A lot of youngsters actually came to these places. In the Bangalore one, we had somebody travel from Kerala for that dosa, which was like really surprising. I think because this happened right after the lockdown, a lot of people were looking to find new connects, right? It was not about the food per se, but more about.
And when you're on Zoom, right, you're like, 284 people, participant tab, 284 people. It doesn't hit you, right? With all those grey screens, and 50 people on one whatever screen. When you're in person, you're like, bro, like, you know, like it's a completely different. It hits you in your face. 2 years ago there was like nothing, and now there is like.
In fact, वो event में लोग आए ना, तो लोगों को लगा कुछ अभी pitch मारेंगे, कुछ होगा, कुछ scene होगा, you know? And it was like you come and like tag मिलेगा, बात करो लोगों से,
chill करो, बेचने की जरूरत नहीं है,
हाँ कुछ नहीं. And people, I'm sure like half expected us to pitch like some Stoa thing or like call.
Guys, welcome to our upsell. हम कर रहे हैं Stoa offline cohort. आओ बैठो.
So
yeah, I think like it's crazy when you actually go meet people in person, you talk to them, and you're like, oh, it's actually having impact, right? You know, like हम तो सिर्फ tweet मारते रहते हैं, like you it becomes a number after a point, and like retweet.
It's hard to humanize so many people, right? What the impact that you have. I've noticed that when I've been going to gigs की लोग कहते हैं मैं तो उसका सुनता हूँ, मैं अच्छा ऐसी शक्लें भी होती हैं listeners की, इस तरह के भी होते हैं, इनके नाम ये भी होते हैं, because I have a very fixed image of like who listens to or like watches, and then it changes when you meet people on offline. फिर भी ये काबिल तारीफ है to like get an online community to move offline, because like if you think about it, maybe Stoa has probably because of their purchasing powers are higher, right? Because those who join are looking to get hired and they're serious about it. Otherwise, why would they do it, right? Typically, I've seen there are a lot of Discord communities and stuff. Those largely remain online. Those like people don't often translate into offline. Sometimes they do, but it's just rarer. It's just based on like a mutual interest or something. But बढ़िया बात है the fact that you know taught so many cohorts on Zoom, and then people are coming offline में शुक्रिया करने के लिए, मिलने के लिए कि कौन है, you know.
तो उसका मतलब again थोड़ा theoretical answer है. When you have been through a shared experience for a long time and it's slightly painful, right?
Yeah.
Then people bond. जैसे अब स्टोआ में ही होता है केस वीकेंड होता है तो लोग रात को सैटरडे को 4 बजे तक वर्किंग पीपल मंडे से फ्राइडे काम करके फिर सैटरडे रात को 4 बजे तक you're working and you're getting on a Discord call at 4 o'clock in the morning कि भाई तुमने क्या किया, हमने क्या किया, तुम्हारी टीम का कैसा है, हमारी टीम का कैसा है.
सैटरडे कोई
मतलब typically our learning is weekend.
Your friends are getting hammered somewhere, smashed somewhere on that weekend, and you're like making an Excel sheet for something that you paid money for, right?
Okay.
And you're doing this for the last 4 months, let's say 2 months to go, but you're still at it, right? Like, and you're with it with some 4 other like nerds like you. So वो vibe ही अलग है कि यार college day throwback, assignment late night, like really trying to crack a problem, competition hai, right? You got to present the next day. When you, this is a friend who said it to me ki when you go through that common suffering, when you all have suffering together, wo bonding ban jati hai.
Yeah, that happens with like teams, it happens with army people, it happens with fraternities, and even with a group of friends. अगर तुम्हारे सिर्फ वाले दोस्त हैं जो तुम रात को जिनसे पीने के लिए मिलने होते हो, like you don't really have much to offer, but if they've been with you through some kind of tragedy, ये ऐसे तो तुम्हें लगता है यार हाँ यार ये मेरे दोस्त हैं. I think that's the same thing that is at play here as well.
In fact हमारा जब मुंबई मीटअप हुआ था ना तो I was surprised कि यार cohort 1 जो मतलब कब this is early pandemic OGs, and then they are meeting these cohort 5 people and it's as if like they are friends, like they have never met each other even on a Zoom call for that matter, right? But I'm pretty sure like now there are certain rituals within Stoa कि कोई cohort वाला बोलेगा कि यार वो पनीर एक्सप्रेस कैसा था तुम्हारा पनीर एक्सप्रेस, तो some 10 cohorts later also that person will say यार.
But that's incredible, the fact that even if you're not injecting these on your own, it happens. Right? आप किसी कॉलेज में भी जाते हो, तुम बैच 15 के पास आउट हो गए, दूसरा बंदा बैच 99 के पास आउट है, चाहे अब उसको एटलीस्ट 2 मिनट की कॉन्वर्सेशन तो गारंटीड है ना. लाइक यू इमीडिएटली ट्राइंग टू फाइंड आउट लाइक व्हाट आर द कॉमन पॉइंट्स, डू यू हैव दिस बिल्डिंग एट दैट पॉइंट, डू यू हैव दैट प्रोफेसर, only because the name or the physical place of that,
Yeah. So Raj and me, we are same college, 6 years apart, right?
Different campuses.
And we met online. Before we started a company, we only met 1 year after we started the company together in person.
Zoom पे चला दी एक साल बिना मिले.
Yeah, I mean.
तो कभी ये नहीं देखा क्या पता ये कोई अच्छे इंसान ना हो या कोई अच्छे इंसान ना हो. Like
college, right? We had the same like even though different campuses, but that same whatever cultural thread कि अच्छा ये इसने ये डिग्री किया होगा, ये बैच का है. So you have like some mental image of a person कि ये कैसा होगा.
So I think colleges, be it like institutions like the army, whatnot, these are like pools, islands of culture, right? They
right.
Like they have their own codes, social codes, rituals होते हैं, right? Like language, they have specific language, like what you would call certain things in your college, like would be different from what we like. For example, in BITS, final exam is known as the comprehensive exam, but for I'm sure for decades now it's been beaten down to compre. So when BITSians, let's say they meet and you just even whisper compre, people are like, "Abey yaar, like yaad mat dila,"
It also signifies that you are an in-group now.
Yes.
Yeah.
Which is a huge thing. Online communities के अंदर ना. I was reading a tweet. You said that we're doing a meetup. DM me with something that you can add value with. That's like a screener, right?
Yeah, I mean, and that's I think it ties in with again the brand, because we are like all about like how do you
create
value for others, right, on the open marketplace.
And मतलब Stoa का छोड़ो, I think everybody is in search of in group, right? जब तुमको मिल जाता है, मतलब maybe that could be church, that could be army, that could be like BITS, IIT, whatever. उसके बाद थोड़ा I think people also become stable कि कुछ मिल गया मुझे,
sense of identity
मिल गया कि.
So I think that's pretty much the case. And for example, a lot of like tier 1 boys would shit on, let's say, an institution like LPU, but for a lot of people that is their identity and they are perfectly like
fine with it,
they love it. They have their own heroes in there, of course, like some of them are extremely
Olympians now.
Accomplished, right? And they are having fun. they're having fun. But वही होता है ना कि ये मेरा like tribalism है कि मैं ऊंचा हूँ, these people are this, अरे ये वो. तो
you just reinvent everything all over again. Like सब culture में भी अभी अपना stack ranking आ गया है.
Stack ranking?
मतलब
pecking orders, right? Like everyone thinks कि मैं ऊंचा हूँ, आप यहाँ हो.
Hey, I've been spending some time around street style. Tell me about it, bro. क्या? It's like what? मैं अगर Nike के sport shoes पहन रहा हूँ, like I'm not welcome here.
Is it?
In some places, most people are chill. मेरे को ऐसा लगता है, this is an unpopular opinion, only because I'm a little traditional in the sense कि यार अगर आप हमारे पास नहीं है personality तो बोल दो ना. मतलब T-shirt तेरी conversation starter तो नहीं बनने वाली beyond like saying कि अच्छी T-shirt है, great. Oh, please say more. नहीं, what do I say? You know, like that's it. So a lot of people use it as a way to signify that they're cool. But yeah, some people generally like dressing up, but I think it's a lot of needless posturing, which is the case for a lot of communities as well, right? Like there are always, in every community, there's some positive people who implicitly tell what the rules are, and there are some negative people who implicitly gatekeep those communities, right? It's the second order I have a problem with. नहीं, हम ये नहीं, हम ये हैं, हम ये नहीं, हम ये हैं, हम ये नहीं, हम ये हैं, that kind of thing. But at the same time, I'm just wondering now, like it must be important to also do that, right? So that it can't be like a loose thing. You just let it run over. Like I'm sure when you guys are doing your events and everything else, you're curating a little bit. It's not just like कि भाई हम Stoa and जो करना है वो करो.
नहीं, so for example, one thing which we are very careful about is politics नहीं लाएंगे इस space में. Because there is no way you are meeting somebody virtually, तुम्हारे कुछ भी opinion, so you can't convince, like, you know, people don't change.
And why do you want to convince someone you're going to meet professionally anyway कि मुझे ये लगता है.
So ये rule है जैसे politics, religion, like, you know, all these very
dominant like
narratives,
identities and narratives, like let's, you know, just like check them out and talk about how we can help as many people like lead whatever like life comfortably, right? Value दे दो लोगों को, like solve their problems, what not, rather than stick things on a tangent, create problems inside as such. But of course, so yeah, I think one, I think philosophy, one is ideology, if one is to like whatever, ideology as, you know, like the fancy boys call it
ideology,
you know, like you have to go by is like capitalism. I think that's something that that's one thing that we'll openly say we subscribe to, and that
however imperfect.
हाँ यार, आप धंधा करते हो, अगर आप नहीं बोलोगे तो कौन बोलेगा? Like yeah.
So and that's something that we believe in. It's imperfect, right? But like we will stand by it, and that's it. That's the one, I think, guiding light that we have.
मतलब यहाँ पे किस लिए आए हो Stoa में, right? Like of course you want to have a network, but then you're you're here to learn about business and do business, and so anything that distracts from that, and this is even for the org, right? Like even within org we say कि भाई अपने को ये करना है, we have to help people get to their first big break. So we should only talk about things that get people there. Everything else, our personal preferences, whatever, वो अपने college के दोस्त हैं, उनके साथ करो बातें ये सब.
I was on your newly started blog है, is there newsletter? It's available to anyone.
आजकल तो newsletter बोलते हैं लोग. That is what we would want to call it.
No, but I was on it and I was sifting through it और मेरे को मज़ा आ गया पढ़ने में, which rarely happens because like your proposition was कि most newsletters are also like वही Wikipedia से thought leadership चिपका दो. Beyond the ones that really work all across the globe, right? So I was reading the one essay on cash flow versus profit, right? As someone who thinks यार हम तो बड़े profitable हो रहे हैं, बढ़िया, I didn't think about cash flow at all. And I don't read my fair share of Warren Buffett and Charlie Munger and like ये सब trade डालियों की दुनिया कैसे बदल रही है. Maybe I should. But that essay was short enough that it made me understand maybe I should really be focusing on cash flow, you know, because a lot of the things that I do also involve that I have, you know, cash on hand. And it took me 2 minutes to read and I was very surprised. I'm not doing like the guys, is not a paid promotion, like but I was very surprised कि बहुत ही अच्छी तरीके से लिखा हुआ था. It was a smooth read and I was wondering, you put in a lot of intelligence into that. Maybe it's not scalable, but I think it reached the right person.
And I think it's about reaching the right people as compared to like trying to reach
10,000 लोग की email list
like
है,
for
हाँ.
example, if I reach like you and I knock some sense in you, whatever it may be, like you have 100K let's say subs right now, and that's I'm sure going to grow, right? And if I make a little dent to your life, you have that leverage in terms of 100K, probably someday 1 million subscribers whose lives you can touch and change, right? Like so wo ripple effect I think is like
no, the other way is it's a qualifier, right? Like for us from a very sales marketing perspective, if somebody doesn't enjoy reading this, it is very unlikely that they're going to have fun time at Stoa learning,
right?
And if they can't read this, like even that short piece, yaar ye kaise business role mein, like if you can't read a piece like that, कैसे वो business role में success कर पाएगा, like so these are some ways, and it's whatever we write there is genuinely something that we believe in, and second we are trying to do cash flow वाला जैसे you said, no? So the only thing that I look at, for example, very simply is मेरा महीने का महीना बैंक बैलेंस ऊपर जा रहा है कि नहीं, राइट? कि हर महीना मेरा ऊपर जा रहा है. दैट इज़ अ वेरी सिंपलेस्ट, मतलब वेरी वाटर्ड डाउन वर्जन ऑफ थिंकिंग अबाउट कैश फ्लो,
राइट? एंड आई डोंट थिंक इनफ पीपल टॉक अबाउट दैट.
एंड कनेक्टिंग बैक टू योर क्वेश्चन कि ये फंडिंग तुमको क्या लग रहा है, हमको नहीं, बिकॉज द वे वी बिल्ट इट इज कि जितना हमने रेस किया उससे ज़्यादा बैंक में पैसा रहना चाहिए मंथ ऑन मंथ. सो हैव नेवर डिप्ड इनटू, it's almost like an insurance pool, right? We will at some point when we want to grow really fast. But these are few things that unfortunately in your Twitter thread word don't get talked about a lot, right? Like,
because in India also it's very touchy-feely to just talk about money. It's easier to talk in terms of hypotheticals rather than the actual.
Right. कि कितने कमाते हो, कितना specific. हाँ, ये तो होता ही है कई बार. But it's also a little invasion of privacy as well. Some people are like, how much do you earn per month? What are your income sources? Like मेरे घर में आके रह लो यार. Like
so there are I think two types of people who I've come across recently. Like, and I of course take the more cautious route, if you don't mind. Like I'm trying to fit people into like my mental model level. Like whatever. I'm just trying to check where the world is at, right? Market gauge karo. But there are people like, why are you asking me like if you don't mind? Like why should I mind? Look, mera salary figure. Like this is it. I am not ashamed or whatnot. And then you have people who just you would not even ask that question to, because you know कि नहीं बताने वाले हैं ना.
दूसरा बात ये है कि यार हमारा business model बड़ा straightforward है, like there is one price that everybody pays. We publicly talk about how many people we take in every month.
आप तो building public ही करते रहते हो,
तो कोई भी हमारा revenue अपने आप ही multiply करना है बस to calculate the revenue. उसमें मान लो 10% discount दे दो ये वो, but it's pretty straightforward.
तो उसमें छुपाने वाली क्या ही बात है. It's not some complicated like mathematical equation.
I also think it's nice because one thing I noticed with the blog as well, and अब मेरे को it's all coming back to me now. The real writers or thinkers in India are now all in tech. I think there is merit to literature students or people doing literature, but as far as accessible communication is concerned, I think that boat has sailed for them a little bit. Like you could have a literature degree, but if you don't adapt your communication to what the world reads, especially on Twitter or LinkedIn, right, you run the risk of being like, bro, I like Shakespeare and whatnot, but I don't get any page views on my blog, right? Which I think the tech has cracked. So I genuinely like the writers that come from Indian tech because they're very smart. And you would never expect it. When we were growing up, right, typically writing was considered to be like, first of all, a non-profession, right? Writing well. Second of all, something that is people who are very imaginative. But the way information is disseminated now, it's changed. Ki the simpler and the more accessible you are in your writing, which often happens as a consequence of being very logical, which is a consequence of being in tech, right? It's all happening there.
I think it's also escapism from what happens on our TV, right? Like, which is, I mean, the only space that now allows some sane conversation is actually this writing.
Yeah.
Because बाकी जगह तो सारी स्पेस थोड़ी
रील्स तो हम बना नहीं सकते, लाइक नाच ट्रेंड पे नाचना तो नहीं आता है इतना, तो लाइक
सो इंडियन टेक राइटिंग इज अ स्पेस विच अलाउज पीपल टू बी लाइक आई वुड से मेडिटेटिव इन थिंकिंग कि And there are a lot of interesting writers, right? Like you mentioned about Ashish.
Yeah.
I find his work very beautiful. Matlab, the way he approaches data, and there is no judgment, right? Like आशीष के वर्क में कहीं पे जजमेंट नहीं है कि भाई यूपी बढ़िया है या महाराष्ट्र बढ़िया है,
तो फैक्ट्स दिखा देता है ना सामने,
फैक्ट्स है. But when you look at that number, something clicks, right? Like it tells you something about India that you would previously not know. I think he did a thing on 2-wheelers and 4-wheelers, and then I think those were some contrasting graphs. और जब मैंने देखा यार, मैंने सोचा कि यार ये तो अपने को पता ही नहीं था अपने देश के बारे में कि.
And in which parts of India do people pursue which degree?
Right? Oh, that was there as well.
Yeah, like multiple.
So North is very humanities because UPSC है ना. तो BCom करना है, BA करना है, BSc करना है और UPSC का प्रेप करना है. साउथ इज वेरी इंजीनियरिंग हेवी. आंध्रा, तमिलनाडु, महाराष्ट्र इज वेरी इंजीनियरिंग हेवी. तो जब we don't think about in those terms, right? Like when you think of India,
we don't think about that at all.
Yeah. Gujarat is also, of course, the very BCom heavy. You know, finance BCom.
Because you have to be like a dhanda wala businessman type ka. That's crazy.
So I think, I mean, it's out there, right? But when you see it,
the other thing is, I think traditionally Indian businesses have not been written about at all. तो अगर ये MBA में भी जाओगे तो वहाँ पे केस स्टडी कौन से है? वहाँ पे तो सारे US के ही हैं. तो इंडिया के, like you know, I'm doubtful whether HBR has written a case on, let's say, Reliance or Tata or Mahindra, और तो वो अभी तक हमारे बारे में कभी लिखा ही नहीं गया है.
And we're waiting for white people to like write on us to validate our own existence.
We should write for ourselves though. We should write white papers, you know, on what is happening in India. I remember there's this organization called the Indus Entrepreneurs, TIE. I was a kid, they had this whole fucking like program for the young entrepreneurs, young TYE, and they did it at IIT Delhi for like 4 weeks. और तुम्हें मतलब एक टीम बनेगी और तुम्हें कोई बिजनेस आइडिया बनाना है. लाइक द ओनली स्टार्टअप थिंग आई एवर डिड बैक देन. एंड दिस गाय वाज लाइक, अब हम तुम्हें हार्वर्ड से पढ़ाएंगे. सम गाय हु ग्रेजुएटेड फ्रॉम अ ग्रेजुएट प्रोग्राम इन हार्वर्ड लाइक वे बैक. सो ही डाउनलोडेड हिज पेपर्स फ्रॉम दैट टाइम और उस पर लिखा हुआ है नॉट फॉर पब्लिशिंग एनीवेयर एल्स. और वो हमारे को 1993 की केस स्टडी यूज़ करके यूएससी कंपनी में हम बोल रहे हैं वाह यार हार्वर्ड का पढ़ रहे हैं हम. He's using those class notes to teach us. We're like, bro, kya something here? We're learning from a Harvard. No idea. He's not even adjunct. He's just a student who went there once. He's like कि मैं अपने computer में जाके notes निकाल लिए हैं. But like, you're like, fine, great.
It's all cultural.
And these things matter, right? So when you write, I mean that's cultural dominance. In fact, बहुत side note है. Like BLM में if you see, they say कि you know that whole CRT thing.
Sorry, it's like, BLM is not Black Lives Matter.
Yeah, it is.
Okay.
Or the critical race theory or whatever. Right? One of their things that they say is written word. The absolutism of written word is actually racist in some sense. But I think that is where the cultural dominance comes from. So the moment you become good at writing, you can craft the narrative because that
propaganda,
stays.
in other words.
So written word is important, and I think a lot more people should be writing about Indian business, what it means.
Just writing in general, because you know we always consider ourselves to be such an oral culture. हम तो कहीं सुनी बातें ज़्यादा करते हैं as opposed to writing.
तो founders भी देखोगे ना, अपने यहाँ के founders भी बस अरे यार ये कर ले यार. Very very rarely would they write a thoughtful memo. Like you know you look up to like Patrick Collison और Stripe का memo देखा है और Stripe का writing culture. We talk about it, but मैं कहाँ लिखता हूँ ज़्यादा.
So for us it's just like meeting करो, meeting में बोलो लोगों को and just like
or voice note.
हाँ like 10 voice notes.
It's difficult to be a completely writing culture and asynchronous team बनाना. I tried a bunch of times. It's just harder because
WhatsApp पे आ जाता है.
एस्पिरेशनल है वो एक चीज़ करनी. बिकॉज आई ऑल्सो वॉन्ट कि हमने नोशन कंपनी वाला पैक ले रखा है, हम लोग सब उस पर काम करें. बट आई हेट नोशन. आई डोंट लाइक इट. सो
इट्स अ लाइक fight against DK. Even if you have a Notion workspace, whatever, like it's like every month it turns chaotic, right? People have made their own like
some people structure. Use emojis and shit and like ruining the vibe.
Some people use tables, some people don't. Some people just like, you know, toggle write all over the place. Some people use toggles. It's just like when there's no, like when a company is growing fast also, there's no cultural code ki training ki aise use karna hai this space. It becomes like you need someone to just come and trim garden around, like
without एक pages को भी trim करने के लिए कोई चाहिए,
chief notion officer.
Chief notion officer. Chief, I mean it's the state of entropy, na, like garbage junk sort of just like accumulates.
And the purpose is it gets deprioritized, which is the knowledge culture transfer, right? Like I would say it, जैसे हमने स्टोआ में बहुत recently realize किया कि there is big gap, एक 4-5 महीने का gap है जिसमें कोई join ही नहीं किया स्टोआ को. So a lot of people who are now work for
was that like around New Year's?
No, not New Year's.
This is in the team. We didn't recruit.
Okay. We didn't recruit for a while. So the early team, which has all the context about what all went down in first 6-7 months of Stoa, वो कहीं पे कल्चरली ट्रांसफर ही नहीं हुआ है. नए लोगों को पता ही नहीं है कि यार इन्होंने क्या एक्सपेरिमेंट किए थे, क्या वर्क किया, क्या नहीं वर्क किया. बट इफ इट वाज रिटन डाउन इन सम फॉर्मेट, it probably would have.
Historian, right? Like company historian, basically. I mean,
really?
People who've been. I mean, you need that. Like otherwise, people reinvent the wheel.
I thought they just call them secretaries.
Not really. I mean, you need.
They take meeting notes, no? That's why.
Meeting notes is one thing, but then who's going to go through like a dump of 100 meeting notes? You need a company ka history, right? Like if you look, for example, first podcast that we appeared on together, that has a different snapshot.
Yeah.
And we like there are just some whatever breadcrumb trail, some dump here and there of narrative, and this is like going to be filed in history, and 3 years later on it'll be like looking back and be like, oh, at that point it was this, but it needs to be then put down into a readable,
drowning in intelligent work. For everyone who's in like knowledge worker, we can't even handle our own mess. We have to have like एक software है, उसको manage करने वाला चाहिए, फिर उसको
But it is very interesting. मतलब अगर see let's say 3 years from now we watch this and we don't say कि यार मैं कितना चूतिया था यार, how idiotic I was back then. So that means you're not making progress. So in that sense, like
it's okay. Sometimes it's okay to be proud of your cringe self. उसमें क्या है? हाँ बोलो यार मेहनत तो कर रहा था ना, आया तो.
Yeah.
मैं तो ऐसे ही अपने आप को तसल्ली दे देता हूँ.
It's weird, right? When I look at my writings from 2011 on my blog, let's say, which is I mean, I've not deleted it. It's there for people who can have the patience to dig it up and
find it. ये आदमी बहुत आगे आया
है. But at the same time, more importantly, I look back and I'm like, wow, not much has changed. In that sense, like, wow, this person could write too. In that sense, it was not bad at all. Like, I'm impressed. I was not dumber. So it's weird. You've like a lot has changed, but still like the essence, in a way, has still remained the same. However you have to put it in a whatever philosophical ship of Theseus kind of tone. Like,
I mean, the other way to put it is writing is sense making, right?
Yeah.
बहुत कुछ हो जाता है अपने लाइफ में.
We can't understand.
हाँ, और फिर जब तुम लिखना चालू करते हो तो you are essentially making sense of it.
Also, conversation is just like in the air. It's like gas. It disappears, right? कुछ बातें रह जाती हैं मन में कि ये एक बात कही गई थी.
And in fact, like not many people discuss the difference between writing on a piece of paper versus writing on digital mediums, which is, I think, so. I think people really underappreciate the difference between writing on a piece of paper versus writing digitally.
Yeah.
Because I can backspace my way out of like a bunch of things, right? Whereas like cutting out stuff on piece of paper is crazy. I can't even imagine the amount I rewrite, right? Before posting something. Can't imagine what would it be like if I were to put it on पेपर, राइट? लाइक पागल हो जाता मैं. तो दैट इज
हम एक्चुअली टेक्नोलॉजी ये लोगों को नहीं पता है कि तुम नोशन पे या गूगल डॉक पे कुछ लिखा तो उसको तुम एडिट कर सकते हो, रीराइट कर सकते हो. आई डोंट थिंक लॉट ऑफ पीपल नो दैट, और as in they don't practice it is what I mean.
Oh, rewriting. हाँ, of course they don't practice.
कुछ तो लिख दिया, डंप कर दिया, भेज दिया. Like
ये actually ये पता है क्यों आता है? I think it's because of our exam taking culture.
हाँ.
You know, I don't know if this is true. I just think because so where do you actually write? You write in the English exam also, right? आप deliberation कर ही नहीं सकते हो. Like to think, am I right? Is this making sense? काटना oh bro, आपका paper neat नहीं है. You know, you get marked for that.
Yeah.
So I think all of us are great at like we're all fantastic first draft writers, right? मैंने लिख दिया, कितनी बड़ी बात है, मैंने लिख भी दिया, मैं कितना बड़ा परोपकार कर रहा हूँ आप पे लिख के. और रीराइटिंग, like readability, fuck that. It's just that like a lot of people get caught up in their own BS. So like, I have written something, they can't get over that act. And fortunately, when you write every single day, you have to get over that. Like, everyone can get a first draft down. Does it reach the right people? Does it have, like, I think about like, one thing people hate purist writers is like, bro, Twitter ne writing kharab karti hai. No, it just shows you the virality of your ideas, you know? If you have great ideas and a lot of people retweet it, it means you're making sense.
Yeah.
I think the difference between like writing and great writing is that editing that happens, right? People people tend to assume ki whatever they read is what the person just vomited, and they think the person is great. No, just that the person has gone back to the drawing board, sent it to some 3 friends, gotten like like comments on what is not landing very well, and then gone out to publish it, so to say. So wo jo difference hai is what more people need to practice and also understand. People are not born like to write great stuff. It's just that
we also don't think in complete sentences. We think in images and like impressions. हम ऐसे सोचते नहीं हैं. Today I'm feeling very abstract about the weather and I should. ऐसा कोई सोचता ही नहीं है. हाँ. We're with the 2-hour mark now. So where can people find you?
I'm on Twitter. I think like Twitter DMs is where I ask everyone to land, because that's where I interact with people the most. That's where I'm like active on. That's my inbox.
Okay.
So Twitter @Kunst, KUNKSED. That's where I am to be found at. Instagram also, if you want like more freewheeling life bakchodi sort of advice and not
then
just
Stoa HQ, Instagram and Twitter.
Yes, Stoa HQ, and we are on stoa.com. Aditya.
Yeah, I mean, I prefer Aditya at stoa.com, ADITY at stoa.com.
You're giving out your email?
Yeah,
we can edit this out if you want. Are you sure?
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Okay, ठीक है.
And LinkedIn.
I mean, यार, stoa.com पे जितना खर्चा किया है कोई तो. So
hilarious. But you also have a Twitter, right? What's the Twitter?
Yeah, it's Bizaditya. BIZ.
Yeah.
And LinkedIn is like if you bump into us there, you'll be delighted. That's all. I mean, it's not crap. It's whatever, like golden poop in the middle of like rest of the poop.
Yeah.
So
मैं कभी-कभी LinkedIn खोलता हूँ just to get that dopamine from notifications, but वो dopamine भी hit नहीं करता मेरे को, because वो जो notifications है ना, उनकी अहमियत नहीं है मेरे मन में कि फलाना commented on a post you made 3 months ago. तो ठीक है यार भाई, करो आप. Anyway, it was great talking to you guys. I had a lot of fun, and thank you for being cool. Thank you for doing all the things you do, and thank you for coming to Faridabad to do Dostcast.
Yep. Really like loved it, and looking forward to more bakchodi in different corners of the
when he comes
world.
To Bangalore. Yeah.
For sure.
Bangalore, Goa, whatever, right?
Guys, Bangalore podcasting market seized. Thanks to now middlemen and also founders.
Yeah.
Say, chalo, sort it. We'll see you in the next episode, Tuesday or Friday, whenever it comes out. Don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to check out stoa.com as well. Bye-bye.